Notice of this regular meeting has been given pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-6, in order to comply with the executive order signed by the governor, and in an effort to follow best practices recommended by the CDC, this meeting is being held virtually. For all board members, board professionals, the applicant's professionals, interested parties, and members of the public. Applicants have the right to present their application and for it to be decided in a fair and impartial manner. They will present witnesses that will offer testimony as part of their case for approval for a site plan and/or subdivision. In some situations, there will be no variances. Those are deviations from the land use and zoning ordinances requested. The board relies on reports prepared by the board professionals. And I put an example, the planning board engineer and the planning board planner. The board will also consider reports from police and fire as to safety issues. During the presentation of its case, the applicant may offer a traffic expert. After the testimony of the applicant's witnesses, members of the public will have an opportunity to ask questions of this witness, sort of like a cross-examination in a court proceeding. We all watch TV legal shows. This is not the time for members of the public to make statements or interject comments. After the applicants conclude their case, members of the public will be sworn in by the board attorney. The public can then testify as to their opinion about the application. To promote efficiency, members of the public can state that they agree with a prior statement of residence rather than merely repeat again the same issue. I will stop anyone that's repeating the same issue. It is important to remember the board has limited jurisdiction. This means limited power to act. For example, the board cannot consider testimony as to the number of children in the school system while it is making a determination to approve or deny a fully conforming application. That means no variances of the zoning and land use ordinances and conformance and compliance with the township's master plan. However, the board does have power to attach conditions to an approval, which can incorporate the concerns presented by the public. And I gave an example, additional trees. This would be anything more than required by the ordinance. But the important piece is that this must be agreed upon by the applicant. I hope that this introduction better helps the public to understand the formalities of a planning board meeting. The goal is to establish an order and structure to allow diverse opinions and comments to be presented in an efficient, organized, respectful manner. Disruption of a meeting for a matter unrelated to the application under consideration will not be tolerated. Okay, I think at this point then, if you want to, Dennis is waving the flag, if we would like to do the Pledge of Allegiance. So I'm not going to stand, but we'll say,
I pledge allegiance
to the flag
United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, planning board agenda, September 14th, 2020. Lillian does not look like she's able to join, so John, are you going to do the roll call, or how are we going to handle it?
I'll do the roll call.
Okay, Mike Rubin's going to do the roll call.
Mr. Correct?
Present.
Mr. Singh?
Yes, present.
Mr. Zoltez?
Here.
Mr. Pippola?
Present.
Ms. Chairwoman Ruggieri?
Present.
Mr. Reader?
Here.
Mr. Sandalski? Mr. Sandalski?
Here.
Thank you. Councilman Coyle?
Here.
Mr. Danielle?
Here.
Thank you. Also present is Mr. Bignell,
Here.
Mr. Carley,
Here.
and I'm the board attorney, Michael Rubin.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
would you be able to clarify that anybody who is listening that may be on the call for the application that's going to be on October 5th, 41 Glendale, could you let them be aware there'll be no comments on that particular application?
Right. And again, I refer everyone to the agenda that is posted on the website. And the agenda for tonight's meeting does not have the Glendale application. So anyone that wants to speak as to that application has to wait for, what day was it? October
5th.
October 5th.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. On to this agenda, again, that was posted. Acceptance of minutes, there are none. On to resolutions. P5-20, AC Power 8, LLC, Mill Road.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve P5 20-20 AC Power and LLC.
Second.
Okay, now, Mr. Rubin, are you going to keep track of the,
Yes, I'm going to keep track of the vote.
okay. All right, so I have a motion and a second. Oh,
Mr. Correct?
Yes.
Mr. Singh was not eligible. He was not present. Mr. Soltesz?
Yes.
Mr. Pippola?
Yes.
Chairwoman Ruggieri?
yes.
Mr. Reader was not present. Mr. Sandelsky? He looks frozen. I'll come back to him. Councilman Coyle?
Yes.
Mr. Danielle?
I wasn't at the meeting.
Oh, you were not, and Councilman Coyle, you're an eligible vote. You voted no. So, did we get back?
Understood.
Can we get back Mr. Sandelsky? No, not yet. Okay, we'll come back to him.
I'm here.
Oh, Mr. Sandelsky, the resolution on AC Power, P5 2020, do you vote in favor of the resolution?
Yes.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Next resolution, Madam Chairwoman.
Yes, extension of time, P5162, Thomas Shea, 1-year extension for Woodland Avenue.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to extend the time for P5162.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Rubin?
Mr. Correct,
Yes to approve.
Mr. Soltesz,
Yes.
Mr. Pippola,
Yes.
Chairwoman Ruggieri,
Yes.
Mr. Sandelsky. He's
Yes.
frozen. I'll come. Yes, he said yes. Councilman Coyle.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And the last one we have here is recommendation to council approving R 651-11, 2019. This is for Meadow Road.
This is the EPA redevelopment site.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
Okay,
Mr. Correct,
Yes to approve.
Mr. Soltesz,
Yes.
Mr. Pippola,
Yes.
Chairwoman Ruggieri, sorry.
Yes.
Mr. Sandelsky. Mr. Coyle, you
Yes.
voted. Okay, Mr. Coyle,
On
Councilman
the
Coyle, you
motion.
voted no on this, so you're not eligible to vote. Okay, approved 5-0. The other resolutions were, AC Power was approved 5-0, and the Shea resolution was approved 6-0.
Scott, have you been able to join the meeting? Oh, okay, okay. All right, thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay,
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Coyle.
before we
Councilman
begin the application, I got a report from Charlie Carley, but I don't have Hank Bignell's report for P16 2019. If he gets this message, I don't know if Lillian's hearing, but I don't have an email of that report.
Okay, let me try to forward that to you.
Okay, thank you.
Old business, there is none. On to new business. We have P16, 2019, 401 South Route 1 LLC. We have block 239, dot A, lot 1, H, looks like 1, L, 1, M, block 3, I'm sorry, block 235, dot A, lot 25 through 29, 30 dot A, 63 dot J, and 63 dot N. Okay, will the applicant please come forward to present their case?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Bernard Shire with the firm of Convery and Shire. I represent the owner applicant, 401 South Route 1 LLC. The property is 401 Route 1 South, and the lots and blocks as described by the chair. It's in the GBH zone, and the block 235A property is an automobile dealership, and the proposal is to utilize the block 239A property, which was an abandoned restaurant in pretty bad condition, which has been demolished by my client, to utilize that property and consolidate it with the automobile dealership for purposes of storage of inventory. The variances sought are de minimis, really. One is for parking stall size only for the inventory, which will be 8.5 by 17, as opposed to the 9 by 18 requirement of the zoning ordinance. Since this will only be utilized for inventory, it's just storage. It is not used for general parking for anyone, whether they be employees of the dealership or there are other parking spaces provided for those people. The other is buffer depth, which is required on the portion of the property that abuts a residential zone, and we are providing significant buffer depth in addition to an 8-foot fence and landscaping. I have to testify Mr. Phil Mastalone, who's the Chief Operating Officer of Edison Nissan, Scott Turner, whom you all are aware is a licensed professional engineer with Menlo Engineering, and Justin Osiello, who is a licensed professional planner from the Cofone Consulting Group, both of whom have testified numerous times before this board. If there are no initial questions, I'll be happy to proceed.
Okay, please proceed. Anyone else
All right,
question?
thank you. All right, just one prior matter for Mr. Bignell. I noticed in his report that there was not a record in the application of the fees being paid, and I would indicate to him that the $1,050 application fees have been paid quite some time ago, and there was a $6,000 escrow fee that was also paid at the initiation of this application.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, Madam Chair, Madam Chairwoman,
I'm sorry?
I just want to make sure that you paid the third and the third. That's what I'm concerned about. For
Well,
all
that
the
will-
revised plans, the ordinance requires a third application fee and a third escrow fee.
Those will be paid, certainly.
All right, well, they should be paid already. That's my concern all the time.
Well, I just saw them in your report today.
Well,
But,
I don't want to get into it, but the plan shouldn't be here tonight if the fees aren't paid. That's the problem. So, Madam Chair, I would suggest that we make find another condition, something that they have to be paid before resolution compliance or something.
If I may, I just think there's a misunderstanding. The total escrow fee showed on Mr. Bucknell's report says $5,810, including the third and the third.
Yes.
Mr. Shire has indicated that they submitted around $6,000 in escrow fees,
It was
which
exactly
means that would
6,000.
include the third of the third. So I think that issue has been resolved.
How about the application? That's not in addition to the application fee. That's
He
just,
already
I have
said-
no
he said-
objection to,
Go ahead, Mr.
I have no
Shire.
objection to a condition being made that the 1/3 of the application fee be a condition of whatever the board does before any resolution or after the resolution, however you want to do it.
but was that included in the 6,000 or it hasn't been included?
No,
So the sixth,
At
Go
one
ahead,
point,
Mr. Shire. Please
at a
explain what
time.
you paid already.
we paid a $6,000 escrow fee initially, which is slightly more than the initial escrow should have been. We initially paid $925 application fee, which was what Lillian advised was the application fee. Later, Mr. Bignell advised it should be increased by $125, which was also paid. So we've paid $1,050 in application fees and $6,000 in escrow fees.
So you still, okay, but then you still owe, if my math is correct, you still owe $500 in application fees.
No, 692, 93.
Yeah. So that's
Whatever it comes out to, we will pay.
very good.
Well, Mr. Council Rubin, I would recommend that these fees paid before you prepare the resolution, if there's a resolution prepared. I mean, I don't know why this wasn't worked out beforehand. So when it comes time for this, I will speak up, but I'm just saying, we've never had anybody do this. It's a waste of our time and your time. So before you start writing the resolution, assuming this goes smoothly, which then we'll make sure the fees are paid. They can deliver the check tomorrow. It's not a lot of money. So,
We will get a check delivered.
okay.
Sorry,
Right,
my dogs are growling.
Okay,
All right, let's go.
if there's nothing further, I'll call my first witness.
Okay,
I'll
first
call
witness.
Scott Turner.
Good evening.
He needs to be sworn.
Mr. Turner, do you solemnly swear from the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name and spell it for the record.
Scott Turner, Turner.
You may proceed. Will you qualify him?
Yes,
Mr. Turner, you're a licensed professional engineer of the state of New Jersey,
Yes, I am.
and you have testified numerous times before this board and numerous other zoning and planning boards in this state, correct?
Yes, I have.
we will
And
accept
you've
you as an
qualified in all
expert in
those
your field.
occasions.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Turner, you have been the engineer for this project from the beginning, correct?
Yes, I have.
All right, and could you please briefly explain to the board the condition of the two, it's really two properties prior to preparing the plans for this application?
Sure, I can do that. What I'd like to do is share my screen with an exhibit, if that's okay, Madam Chair?
Sure.
Yes, yes. I had muted myself because I didn't want you to hear the
Sure.
background noise.
Okay,
Yes.
the host has to enable screen sharing. I can't share it at the moment.
Mm.
Okay, you should be okay.
I've been told you should be okay to,
There we go. Can everybody see that?
Is this?
Almost
This'll be-
was there for a second.
Yes, it's just gonna
That's good.
regen on my screen a little bit, that's all. Okay, there we go.
No,
Okay.
All right, this will be
Beautiful.
A1, please.
Yes, this will be Exhibit A1 dated today, September 14th, 2020. It was an exhibit prepared by my office, Menlo Engineering Associates, and it's entitled Edison Motor Sales. overall plan exhibit. The exhibit is dated August 14th, 2020, and it is a Google aerial image with the existing conditions outlined, with the property boundary, along with the new inventory lot shown along the easterly side. For the purposes of the presentation, we'll just assume north is straight up. So the new parking lot is on the easterly side, which is on the right-hand side of the sheet. Route 1 is running parallel with the bottom of the sheet. So very quickly, just for the record again, it is block 239A, lots 1H, 1L, and 1M, and block 235A, lots 25 through 29, 30A, 63J, and 63N. The property contains 3.52 acres. It has 483 feet of frontage along Route 1 southbound and approximately 162 feet of frontage along Loring Avenue. It is located on the northeast corner of Route 1 and Loring Avenue. It is bounded to the north, which I'll use my cursor to kind of just guide you through, to the north and to the west by residential properties, and then to the south, which is off the sheet, as well as to the east, commercial properties. Immediately adjacent to us is the BP gas station, which immediately abuts up to Plainfield Avenue. The property is located in the GBH zoning district, and it is subject to those zoning standards, and we are a permitted use within that zone. The existing conditions, I'll break this into just two parts. The Nissan car dealership, which is the property that's existing and the dealership that's there. And then the second part will be what I'll call the restaurant lot. So the Nissan car dealership obviously is developed. It's been there for quite some time. I think prior to it being a Nissan dealership, it was a Volvo dealership. It is a two-story building. It has a 19,000 square foot footprint approximately. It has, of course, associated with it the parking lots and the driveways and the display areas and the loading and the service areas, all that would be associated with the car dealership. There are two driveways that service the Nissan dealership. There is a right-in only driveway in this location that's sort of centrally located along the entire property frontage, and then there is a right out only along the westerly side heading out towards Route 1. On the property, there are 184 existing parking spaces that are associated with the car dealership. The restaurant property, which is block 239A, lots 1L and 1H, formerly contained a two-story hibachi and sushi restaurant with a 5,890 square foot footprint. You can see it, we have it ghosted in here on the exhibit, dashed in this area here. If you just follow with my cursor, that was the location of the existing restaurant prior to it being demolished. There again is this, I'm sorry? Okay, so there, associated with that restaurant pad was a larger parking lot in the rear, which is in quite a state of disrepair. And then there is an existing parking lot, a smaller lot in the front, which were immediately adjacent to Route 1, and you pulled in, and then you really almost had to pull yourself out into Route 1 to get out of that parking area. Along that frontage of the restaurant pad, there are a number of curb openings for whatever reason that allowed access into that site, and then the driveway leading to the back parking lot was located on the westerly side of the restaurant pad, kind of where my cursor is here. And there were approximately 50 parking spaces associated with that restaurant, with the restaurant use. So the application tonight is for, we're seeking site plan approval to allow the car dealership to expand and to consolidate all of the lots that were previously indicated into one single lot, to allow for Nissan to construct a new inventory parking lot within the restaurant area. There will be 128 parking spaces located within that area. There's no proposed buildings, no nothing other than parking areas itself. The lot would be interconnected with the Nissan dealership by way of this interconnecting driveway that's located sort of midway up the common boundary line between the car lot and the restaurant lot. And there's an existing dumpster pad in that area. The proposal would be really to relocate that dumpster pad up into this northerly corner of the new inventory lot. The parking lot itself, if you look at the white lines here, that is the proposed striping for the new parking lot. We are proposing to stripe it in a what I would consider a very typical fashion for automobile dealerships. We have a row of a double stacked parking along the westerly side, and then we have a row of triple stacked parking on the easterly side up against the gas station, and then we have a row of single stack parking up along Route 1. This is very typical. I've done a number of car dealerships throughout the state of New Jersey, 2 or 3 of them, in fact, in Edison Township itself. This is something that most of you are familiar with. These are inventory cars, as previously mentioned. The public will not be accessed to them. This will all be controlled by the Nissan employees. So there'll be very limited movement in regards to those parking spaces. The driveway access out onto Route 1 that's currently there that serviced the restaurant will no longer be accessible. We are proposing a new sidewalk along that frontage to connect the 2 existing walkways on either side. We are proposing, of course, the row of inventory spaces along Route 1, and in between the back of the sidewalk and that row of parking, we're proposing a row of boxwood hedges that would prohibit anybody coming in and out of that location for the driveways. In addition, there are proposed concrete bumper blocks along that single row of parking to further avoid anybody using that area of the access driveway out onto Route 1. And of course, this is all subject to NJDOT approval. But this is sort of how we're going to control the access onto Route 1.
You can
the 2
see me
access
now?
points into the Nissan dealership that I previously testified to will be the only ways in and out of the car
you can see me?
dealership as they
Okay.
are today. We are not proposing any changes to that. In addition to the parking lot itself, if we head towards the northerly boundary of that parking area, we are proposing an 8-foot high solid wooden fence that will match the existing fence that was previously installed for the car dealership in this northwesterly location where my cursor is moving. The new fence will continue down the northerly boundary line in an easterly fashion, and then it will head southerly down the most easterly property line adjacent to the BP gas station to provide a buffer from the new inventory lot. In addition to that, we are proposing a row of evergreen trees along the northerly portion of the property because we do have residential uses immediately adjacent to us to the north. And then along the easterly boundary line, along that grass strip there, we have not only the fence, but we will also provide a row of boxwood plantings to sort of frame out the limits of the new parking area. That row of boxwood plantings, again, would continue along the frontage of Route 1, along the new parking spaces, continue across further as it heads towards the existing access driveway into the site from Route 1 as well. We're also proposing new LED lighting for the new parking lot, and as well as new LED fixtures on the existing light pole foundations within the car dealership itself. All will be compliant with the Edison Township standards. Drainage improvements are really very limited on the new parking lot site to just a couple of inlets and some drainage pipe sort of in the middle of the new parking lot. They will tie into the drainage system within the Nissan car dealership lot. And that really is there just so we can provide some adequate drainage flow off the parking lot and into the, collect it and get it into a new drainage system. Currently, there's no drainage out there now. The site is very, very flat. I would imagine that there is some ponding issues in that area currently, but we're going to grade that area and, fix that situation. The new parking lot, we are proposing concrete curbing along the easterly edge of the parking lot, which again is where my cursor is moving. And then along the, the westerly edge, and then along the easterly edge as well along BP. We are seeking a waiver from concrete curbing along the southerly border along Route 1, which is why we have the concrete bumper blocks, and then also along the northerly border as well. And that is to permit drainage flow into the parking area and into that new
Yes on the motion.
system that we're building. Currently, the drainage kind of drains itself from the northerly side into the parking area. And, my concern is if we were to put a curb in here, we would significantly cause some drainage backup in this back area. So we're asking for this to be just an edge of pavement. And similar fashion along Route 1, it sort of drains heading towards us as opposed to Route 1 from the edge of the highway into the site. So we're asking that we allow that to be just edge of pavement as well. Again, the activity in here is very limited. It's going to be moved by just employees and controlled by employees. No public will be in that area. On the existing car dealership itself, there is also some site improvements proposed. We are proposing to add a row of 14 new paved parking spaces located in between the two driveways from Route 1. There's an existing single row of parking there now. My understanding is that there has been some issues with some cars that were parked up in the grass where they shouldn't have been. So this will alleviate that condition by allowing a row of 14 spaces for display up against the highway. They'll be double stacked, but again, they're not the parking spaces that'll be utilized by guests or employees. They'll be just controlled by the employees of the dealership. There won't be any parking space needed for the public. In addition, there's another smaller, lighter gray area along the right side of the ingress driveway. We're just going to add a couple of more spaces in that location as well to kind of get some more spots in that area. And then finally, over at the most southwesterly corner of the property by Loring Avenue, there's an existing emergency access driveway that's gated off that goes out to Loring Avenue. We are proposing to eliminate that emergency access driveway. Of course, we'll need the approval from the fire marshal, which I'm assuming we'll get some sort of response from. But our proposal is to eliminate that gated emergency access driveway and reconfigure the striped area in here to gain 15 additional inventory spaces on the property. And that will include providing some additional, just some very minor additional pavement expansion right up against Loring Avenue, again, all on the property. But that would be the extent of those improvements on the existing car dealership lot. Parking, what I've learned over the past 20 years with working with a number of different car manufacturers and car dealership owners is that, of course, inventory is a premium. They try to utilize as much of the property as they possibly can, which is the reason behind us being here today to ask for approval for this new inventory lot and to provide some reconfiguring of the existing dealership lot as provided on this exhibit. So the site plan as is proposes a total of 161 parking spaces at 9 by 18, which is the municipal standard, and then 128 spaces at 8.5 by 17. So there'll be a total of 289 parking spaces available to the property, which exceeds the municipal requirement for a car dealership of this size of 48 parking spaces. There are available to the public 14 customer spaces right up against the car dealership that are there now, and they will remain. And there are also, of course, an abundance of parking spaces available for employees that are parked, that are striped at 9 by 18 as well on the existing property. So in my opinion, there's more than adequate parking on the site for the employees and the customers for the property. And there is approximately a maximum employee count on one shift of 25 employees. So the 25 plus the 14 is 39 parking spaces. 48 is required, and like I said, we have 161 striped at 9 by 18. And I did mention that we're going to provide some new LED lighting within the.
Madam Chair, before you go any further, Madam Chair, this is Hank. I just have one question for Scott. Scott, what's the maximum total number of cars on site? Everybody total. Total number.
Yep, I'm going to get to it.
And that should be, Madam Chair, that should be a condition of approval if the board agrees.
Right. So we've provided on our plans, there'll be the site shall be limited to 289 vehicles, which include the customer parking spaces. And that excludes, though, however, Hank, that excludes the paved display areas. That is what's going to be.
Number I'm looking for, because I don't want cars parked all over the place. It's got to be in a stall. It's going to be uniform. The aisles have to be kept open. So I want a maximum number. With everything done, all the numbers that are, all the spaces that are marked on site, there should be a number.
Right, but there's also there's pavers that are available for display spaces up against the building and then down at the most southwesterly corner of the property.
The total number of cars, Scott, whatever that is, I'm not,
All right,
I'm not telling you.
I don't have that number, Hank, now. I don't know what that number is going to be. I don't want to guess. And
I don't want it left open, though.
Okay, all right.
If you leave it open, then we're parking cars all over the place again.
All right, we have another witness here that operates the facility, then maybe he can help us with that number. And I'm going to ask Phil as I'm talking, if he can maybe start thinking about that. We have, 289 striped spaces, and then whatever's he thinks is appropriate for the display areas that are on pavers.
You need to give me a more defined space in it, not what the applicant thinks, because that's what got us in trouble in the first place. We need to know an engineering number that fits. So maybe when the planner's doing his testimony, you can count the spaces up and give us some numbers and make the board satisfied.
Okay, I'll do that. Let me finish what my direct, and when the planner's up, I'll do that for you.
Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so I'm almost completed here. So the zoning, again, we are within the general business highway zoning district. We are fully compliant with the zoning standards with the exception of a couple of items. Once again, we are agreeing to consolidate all of the lots, which I think eliminates any of the potential use issues that Mr. Bignell pointed out in his staff report. So the only variances and or waivers I think we require here are for the parking stall sizes of 8.5 by 17 versus 9 by 18, which is required. And again, those are limited to just the inventory parking spaces on the property. And then also the buffer along the residential properties to the north. We have a minimum of 18.6 feet proposed to the northerly boundary line, which is from the corner of the dumpster pad to that rear property line. And we have 19.3 feet from the closest inventory space to that rear property line. And again, the limited activity in this area, I think, helps our situation in terms of the violation of that buffer. We are supplementing that buffer area with evergreen plantings and an 8-foot high board-on-board fence. And perhaps most importantly is that we are consistent, in my opinion, relatively consistent with the existing row of parking that's located behind the existing car dealership currently. And I'll just use my hand, the cursor to kind of just show you where that is. And that's in this area here. This row of parking is located 20 feet from the most northerly boundary line. I'm going to decline, Lillian's asking for this. I'm going to decline this if everybody's seeing this. So that most northerly boundary line, I think where the new parking lot is going is consistent with the existing condition. And again, we're supplementing that area with buffer plantings and the fencing that will continue across the entire rear boundary line. That is my direct, other than staff reports, and we can do staff reports now, or we can wait till all the testimony's done, however the board desires us to go through that.
Let me interrupt and ask Mr. Bignell. Mr. Bignell,
Yes, ma'am?
did you want to do staff reports now, or do you need that calculation though? So maybe.
Well, he can go through the items real quick. I don't think they're.
Well, Madam Chair, I have a couple of questions. It's Mark Danielle before we get to Hank's points. So why is the dumpster being put there?
Well, it's currently located in the area where the new access driveway is going to be located. So it had to be put, we had to move it. And we had to move it in an area that can be accessible by the garbage trucks that come in to get it. And we had felt that that would be an appropriate location. And we do have some plantings around it. It will be screened by fencing. And we also have some landscape screening around it as well.
So you're going to allow a dump truck or a dumpster to back into that, right? Because they can't down all those beautiful cars on the left and the right. You're going to be backing into that, I assume.
They know that.
Well, they'll back in, or if it's a front loader, they'll just drive up to it. But that driveway that we have, we purposely have that driveway at 34 feet wide. It's an extra wide drive aisle to allow for those turning movements to occur.
All right, Mr. Bignell, are there hours of operation when the dumpster, because that's the one area where the houses are along there, and before the dumpster probably didn't annoy people, but when are the trucks going to go to unload that dumpster? What hours do we have? What are the rules we have regarding hours of?
Well, we don't have any rules for that. We have rules for noise at the property line at times of the day. So if the applicant agrees to pick the garbage, like say from 8 in the morning to 8 at night, something like that, that would be reasonable. It wouldn't bother anybody, I don't think. Maybe 9 o'clock on a Saturday.
Mr. Shire, would your client agree to some kind of condition about just limiting the noise? Because now.
I understand your point. Let me ask Mr. Mastalone. Phil?
Yes.
Yeah. Would that between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. for the trash removal be acceptable?
Excuse me, Mr. Shire. Mr. Shire, he's not sworn in yet. He can't speak. Mr. Shire.
No, I'm just asking him a question.
You can't ask him a question on the record if he hasn't been sworn in.
Okay, swear him in.
Mr. Mastalone, do you solemnly swear affirm the testimony about to give us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir, I do.
Please state your name for the record and spell it.
Philip C. Mastalone, Mastellone.
Mr. Mastalone, you're the manager of Nissan Edison?
Actually, I'm the director of operations for Route 46 Auto Group, that is the parent company of Edison Nissan.
All right, Mr. Shire, you can proceed.
Thank you. Mr. Mastalone, there was a question. Since the dumpster is against the northern border of the property, the buffer zone, would applicant be willing to agree that trash pickup would be between the hours of 8 a.m. and 8 p.m.?
I would, and I've already spoken to the garbage company. They would be, after construction, putting us on a 9:30 a.m. pickup. There is no Saturday pickup and certainly no Sunday.
Good, that's great.
Thank you.
So the next question for Mr. Turner. So all these car dealerships, a lot of them, and yours looks beautiful also, or will look beautiful. For the boxwoods on Route 1, are we going to have a drip line there? So 2 years from now, they're not all dead. There won't be any deer eating them, but can we have some kind of, I'm not trying to burden your cost, but some kind of drip line along where your arrow is right now and maybe to the right on the, it's at the east side or no, north side, is some kind of drip line to keep these, because they're boxwood and they drink a lot of water. And we'd like the frontage, it looks going to look nice, to continue to look nice, not for 1 year, but for many years.
I
Sure,
would
I understand
specify
that.
that we'll do that.
Great, that's what I was gonna ask, Bill.
I
Great,
beat you
thank
to
you,
it, John. I'm trying to save some money.
Thank you.
Madam
No
Chair,
worries.
does Dennis Pippola, may I add a point?
Yes, the chair recognizes Mr. Pippola.
The request for variances, I also see that east side, there's a 5-foot setback. I believe that requires a variance also.
Right.
Is that for parking, sir?
Yes.
I thought the setback requirement was 5 feet. If it's not, then we do need that relief as well, yes.
Hank, can you help us out on that?
Yeah, I think 5 feet is adequate.
So there does not require a variance?
I don't believe
Anybody
so.
want some?
He had a couple chips.
What?
Put a couple in the freezer.
Okay.
I will check the ordinance, but I don't think so.
Thanks, hon.
Yeah, within 5 feet of a punch out.
Can anyone hear me?
I can
Oh,
hear
yeah.
you, Lillian.
I can't get on video, but I got on the phone.
Music to our ears.
We've tried everything, but we couldn't get on. Next time I'm staying with John. I thought he was computer illiterate, but I am.
If there are no other questions of Mr. Turner, I would like to go over the professionals' reports with him at this time.
Just to answer Mr. Pipple's question, the buffer is required along the residential property line, not along the eastern property line.
So 5 feet does not require a variance?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Hold on.
What, like this? Go ahead, Mr. Coyle, Councilman Coyle.
okay, it is to the chair. Madam Chair, am I being recognized?
Yes, I recognize
Okay.
Councilman Coyle.
Okay, thank you. A few things here. First, to Hank. Hank, could you walk me through the fire truck coming into this area, and what is the width of the distance between the pre-existing plan that's there now? How does a fire truck get in this area?
Joe, I'd feel more comfortable if the engineer did that. It's his,
Yeah,
Mr. Turner.
if I could, Councilman, you have the existing drive cut on
You
Route
follow,
1.
I'm watching your cursor. Could you, while you do this, can
Go
you
ahead.
tell me the width that of the path as we go through follow your cursor?
Sure, I know Mr. Carley was going to explain, but you can
No, he
certainly
has it.
jump in if I'm misspeaking, but here's the
Yeah,
access driveway into the site. This driveway is approximately 38 foot wide. And you come into the site. And if you had to come in, you would make the right in between these two parking lots here, which I believe are 24 foot wide. Or it's possible that a fire truck may be able to come in through here as well, this very first access driveway paralleling Route 1. And they'd come up the most easterly access driveway, which is also 24 feet wide. And then it would come in from that access driveway through this new interconnecting driveway, and then ultimately get into this big, larger, wide, 34 foot wide paved driveway area if they ever had to get that far into the site. We are not changing or modifying the emergency access routes from on the Nissan lot. They are maintaining as they are currently designed. There's really no change to any of that occurring with this application.
Can I just ask a question that is directly related to that?
Sure.
And who's asking the question?
Mr. Reader.
Okay, Mr. Reader, the chair
Yes, just
recognizes.
directly related to that, with emergency vehicles. What is the reason to shut down, to close up that emergency access on the west side? Yeah, right there.
It's to provide additional inventory parking for the property. We're trying to control the amount of inventory spaces on the property and get them contained within striped areas or within these paver areas that are already there and permitted to have parking on them, I believe.
I just think that the reason I'm asking is because we are closing the access to, to Mr. Coyle's point, we're closing the access to that restaurant lot making it much more difficult. And I just don't feel like closing another access is a smart thing for this size property.
Well, I'd like to suggest that we get comments from the fire marshal.
Yeah.
From the town. I'm sure we're going to get a review letter. I haven't seen one come yet. And if he requires us to make any changes to the plan, we're going to, of course, have to comply with that or with his recommendations.
May I
I
add,
don't know if this driveway's ever been used. I can't testify to that. Yes or no. Perhaps maybe Phil knows whether or not this driveway has ever been used coming into the site from Loring Avenue. I don't know if that's the case or not.
Madam Chair,
Madam Chair, go ahead.
Dennis, Pippola,
Mr. Pippola, the chair recognizes you.
I would request Lillian, did we get a letter from the fire department related to this application?
No, we're still waiting for that.
Okay.
Then why are we hearing this then?
Madam Chair,
It doesn't, you can still hear it.
Yeah, but, okay, I mean, this,
Madam Chair, may I add something?
Okay,
Madam Chair, I still have the floor and I've been interrupted. This is Councilman Coyle twice. I don't have a problem.
Coyle,
But
your comment?
I have a lot of questions on this application.
Mr. Coyle's done.
I have a lot of questions on this application, and I can go on for 15 minutes. But first, I don't think this application is fully prepared. The first part I was able to live with, which was the fee, meeting the fee expectation, which I don't agree with, that an application could be heard without the fees being paid. And if we're going to start that, we should start that for every application, because what's fair for one should be the same for all of them. And the second is, without the fire marshal approving this plan, which is, I think, over excessive, and I'm not sure if the manager is aware of the amount of complaints we've had and how the pre-existing history of them being a good neighbor in the past has been, let alone they've knocked down a building, started using their area for parking before even getting approval. I mean, this is not exactly a good start. Now, listening to the application, what could I say but to tell me we don't have a letter from the fire marshal, knowingly that I don't think a fire truck can get through here. I've been a truck driver a long time in my life. I'd have a tough time seeing a straight job come through there and get into the back. So I just don't see this application, the purpose of being heard tonight without having all these issues being discussed and having factual data on the exact amount of parking, the access to the fire zone that's being covered up for more parking. They're starting with more parking on the front line, which we tried to stop for 3 years and they didn't comply. They backed up in the middle of a highway, backed up onto the grass over the curb. It's a challenge knowing the history that we're going to waive other opportunities and listen to this application. It saddens me that we're moving forward tonight without having some of this stuff, these T's crossed.
And let me interrupt and ask our attorney, Mr. Rubin.
Sherry?
Yes. Oh, Lillian?
Sherry, yes.
Yes.
I mean, there will be the reports. You could hold it over or give it a preliminary and not a final.
Okay. I also did have a comment. Mr. Mastalone had
Can we,
wanted to
can
say
we
something.
remove the exhibit? If we're going to be engaging in dialogue so we can all see one another? Thank you. Go ahead, Madam Chairwoman, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know that Mr. Mastalone had wanted
Off the thing.
comment.
I need to get back on.
I'm sorry, Dennis?
What's that? Sorry?
We lost you. We lost your picture, Mr. Pippola.
Yeah, I'm gonna get back on.
Okay.
All right, Sherry, Chairwoman, you could hold it over till the reports are in or give it a preliminary and not a final.
Well, I don't think that the applicant has presented the rest of his case. Mr. Shire?
Well, I still have some things to go over with Mr. Turner, the reports of your professionals. But, I mean, frankly, you can approve preliminarily, and if the fire marshal wants to do something different, we can comply with that. But I think Mr. Mastalone wanted to indicate something.
Yes, I do think that he's been patiently waiting for his opportunity to speak, so I will recognize him for his comments.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Couple of things. I'm not quite sure what everybody has thought has gone on, but I only received today a copy of the comments by Mr. Bignell. This application, I know, we've been waiting very patiently to get through the COVID-19 situations and quite some time. And I was kind of taken back that today is when I actually got the letter. We've never not paid anything, and certainly nobody in my organization was ever trying to not comply. I thought not only we were in compliance, I agree with Mr. Shahar, that we thought that we had actually given you guys more money, one. Second thing, as far as complaints that are occurred at the property, I spoke to several people in town and complied with any issue that has been brought to my attention from Mr. Ayat. In doing inspections at the property. I've met him several times, and we've tried to comply with absolutely every issue. As far as the parking lot next door, what we explained is that we had a hardship situation. The reason that we purchased the property next door was to alleviate all of this congestion at the parking lot. And that is really the idea here. It isn't so much for us to expand and get bigger. It's really about us doing a better job. And I would be the first to say that we have not done the best job previously, but I'd really prefer for you to kind of look at what we've done over the last year. And I think Mr. Soltis, who was involved in some of those conversations, as I said, Mr. Ayat involved in some of those conversations, that I've personally gone down to the town anytime anything needed to be discussed. Last but not least, I don't know of too many pieces of property that have a fire gate. I don't know of that gate ever being opened, and I'm not quite sure why a large fire truck would come down Loring Avenue when it would seem to me Route 1 would be the best point of access. So whatever we have to do to comply, we're going to. And I think that we have done that. And maybe it wasn't done originally, but it's certainly been over the last year. Everybody has my cell number. I am prepared at a drop of a hat to come down, even on my regular visits. Anybody needs me, I'm available. If the access into the property in the new area is of concern, let's remove a couple of cars from the front line, use the curb cut that's there for a fire truck to be actually able to drive right into that piece of property. The other thing is, we've asked to expand the parking in the front of the store to help also relieve that congestion. And all of this, in our minds, really makes perfect sense. So that's all I'd like to say here. On the new area, so we don't have display across the front, the curb cuts are there. Let's put it there so an emergency vehicle can easily get in. I'd be more than happy to lose 3 or 4 extra spots on the front line to leave that curb cut open. Whatever would make you guys happy within reason. I've never been somebody who's been difficult to deal with, love being in the town, and more than happy to comply in any way. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Madam Chair.
Mark Danielle. Go ahead, Hank.
Okay,
Well,
Mr.
first off, we're that's a bad idea to eliminate the curb cuts on the new parking
Right.
lot. We had to fight like heck to get some landscaping in there. I accepted the fact that he's gonna put the landscaping, put the sidewalk, and put the bumper blocks in there to stop any vehicles. And I know they want to keep the curb cuts. It's very difficult to get one with the state once you eliminate them. So I relented on that fact. As far as the reports, my comments have been, this is the third report we wrote for this application, and we took off all the things in our most recent report that he complied with, but we're still, I think we took off 4 items. So to say that you didn't know what these issues were, that's not fair, and that's not a true statement. As far as the fire marshal goes, fire inspector, we've asked them in the future or in the past to look at that while a case was pending, or make it a condition of approval, whatever. It definitely has to be safe, and that was my concern earlier with Mr. Turner about where they're going to park these vehicles. But you have to leave all the traffic aisles open. You can't be stacking. Once you stack the cars in a stacked location, that's fine, but you can't put them in the driveways, and you can't block access and the things of that nature. So that's what my concern was, making sure that that doesn't happen. Because if you look at that site plan, you'll see that there's cars parked. When that picture was taken, there were cars parked in the aisles and stuff that aren't in a parking space, and that stuff needs to get eliminated. So this gentleman has done a really good job of cleaning up the property and doing things that we've asked him to do. So I agree with him on that regard. And if you look at the last line of my report, it does say he's moved his cars out of the right of way. He's done all that stuff. He's trying to make that legal, but that's up to the board. But at the same time, he has done a pretty reasonable job with doing it. He's correct when he says that he's come to town hall. We've had our go-arounds a few times, but he's done a reasonable job of cleaning up the site. The problem with dealerships, guys, is the fact that, when I was young and you bought a car, you went down there and you ordered a car, and it took you 6 weeks to get it. They had 3 or 4 of that model, and that was it. Now, with dealerships, to survive, they have to take a lot of vehicles, because you can buy the car the same day you go pick it out, because everything comes with the same package, or the air conditioning. There's no more buying a car with ordering different things to it. So I understand the dilemma, but our dilemma is just to kind of maintain what the front of that property looks like and protecting the residents and the parking in the back. And those things he's agreed to, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, it's Mark Danielle. I'm getting a sense Mr. Turner is trying to jam as many cars as they can to get on the property, and this gentleman is saying, well, wait a minute, they're not doing that. In fact, he was willing to concede a couple spots. They're kind of saying pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. We're trying to get too many cars on there. And that's why, Hank, I think you're asking about what is the total number of cars. I mean, if we can just make it a little less dense, I think everyone would be more comfortable. As for the engineer, what's required is it's an 8-foot fence with a 25-foot buffer. You guys aren't doing that, so you can get more cars in if you didn't need all the space. So, you're asking for these variances, and it's one of the several, Hank puts violation. And we need to get some comfort. If we're going to grant these variances, then it's got to be a little more less dense to me.
Mr. Danielle, could I respond to you for a moment? Is that
Sure.
okay? I apologize. I don't necessarily know the procedure.
Yeah, just hold on, please. This can't turn into a dialogue.
Yes, you're right, Mr. Rubin. You're right.
This
You're
has to be a question and answer session between either the board members and the witness, or between the applicant's attorney and the witness, or the public as a witness. This can't just be a dialogue. So let's go back.
I apologize, Mr. Rubin.
Who is the current witness? Let's just get that straight. Is Mr. Turner the current witness? Or
No,
is Mr. Mastalone the current witness?
Mr. Mastalone. Mr. Mastalone.
So let's go through and ask. I think Mr. Soltesz is raising his hand. I think he would like to ask a question. This is a question period. Let's just focus on the question and answer component for the moment, okay? And the dogs, of course, which are most important.
Can we go on mute with the dogs, please?
Could I answer Mr. Danielle's question? Is that acceptable?
No. He didn't pose a question. He made a point. That's the thing. I want to stop the back and forth on the dialogue. If Mr. Danielle has a question to ask you, then let him ask it. But I believe that Mr. Soltesz does have a question. So let's.
I'll pass to Mr. Soltesz.
Okay, so what I remember of this site, as you drive into the main entrance into the dealership, isn't there an island where there's a fire department connection?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that was all, from what I remember, that's yellow striped, right? There's no parking in front of that connection.
Correct. And that is fairly deep into the property. It's not right at the street by any means. It's probably 50% of the way through.
Right. So,
say from Route 1 going back.
right. When we were out there with one of the issues out there, there was blocking of that connection. Now it's been clean ever since I was out there with Mr. Ayotte, like probably a year ago at least. At that time also, the fire marshal stated that if they're going to fight a fire, they're either going to fight it from Route 1 or they're going to pull up to the fire department connection to hook the engine to it. That's where their point of water is. They wouldn't, from what I remember our discussions, I don't remember them, correct me if I'm wrong, Phil, but I don't remember them saying that they're going to transverse the site just because of the patterns and everything else and to get the fire trucks too close to the building.
Well, you're correct. And I don't know if you remember when I said to him, I said, well, why would you drive the truck right up to the fire? And he looked at me and said, of course we don't.
Right.
He said, pull up to the water station.
Yeah,
So-
maybe you could get Scott to show on that exhibit, like where that connection is. Because I think that would solve a lot of the questions that's going on right now. And I just to make a real quick statement, the applicant has been really forthcoming with all the issues we had. In the beginning, we went out there, we told him what to do. He's always been available. He picks up the phone right away, and he tries to do the right job out there. So, I mean, speaking about the past doesn't help the application here or the board to understand the issues. I think so. All that stuff in the past has been taken care of. So I would just like Scott to show us like where on the exhibit that fire connection is, because that'll solve a lot of the questions, I think. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Soltis.
Can I share my screen?
Yes.
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Phil, I'm gonna need your help just to help me where that is. It's coming in off of this driveway, I know that, but is it in this island in here, Phil?
No, it's if you bring your cursor to the right.
Yep.
Way more. No, wait, yeah. And now, no, keep going till you get to the edge of that line.
Yep.
Go straight back and keep going over that line, over that next car note. To the right. Now, go towards the back of the property. You're kind of jumping all around. You'll see 3 white cars are in a row right there.
Okay.
And then you're going to look to your left is the fire connection, I believe, is right over there. Come down a little bit towards Route 1. Stop. I believe that's where the fire connection is.
Are you sure? I mean,
I
John,
think so.
I thought it was right where the island is when you come right in. If you know where that the access from the side street is that you want to block off. If you take that all the way across and come to the entrance to the property, I think it's right there at that island.
I know there's one roughly where that cursor is, and I know there's one at Route 1.
Right, that's what I mean. The one on Route 1 is the one I want to see.
Oh, you want to see the one on Route 1?
Yeah.
You wanted to see the one inside the property. I'm sorry.
Correct.
Where is that one, Phil?
That's out Route 1.
Yes.
It's
right there, I think. No?
Yeah, it's actually located on the grass area in front of that display area because I know somebody unfortunately was involved in an accident.
Right.
So it's in this grassed island that's immediately adjacent to the driveway coming into the site.
Yeah, that's the one I was talking about.
Okay.
Thank you, Scott.
So can we proceed with staff reports at this point? Or are there further questions, or how should we proceed?
Madam Chair,
Well, why don't
Madam
we,
Chair.
let's take the exhibit off first.
can we leave the, Mike, can we, through the chair, can we leave that out? My questions prefer,
Yes.
for the exhibit.
Go ahead.
Is the chair recognizing me?
Can you hear me or see me?
No, I can't see. I just speak to the chair. Okay.
We can hear you.
You can hear me, you just don't see the video?
Right. We only have, because of the exhibit.
Oh, okay. Okay. I had to
Madam
change.
Madam Chair, can I have the floor for some questions to the expert?
Yes, Councilman.
A question I have is that on the front line, the frontage, could you explain the distance of grass area or buffer zone you have? First, let's talk about what you have pre-existing. What do you have pre-existing from the curb to the first parking spot? How many feet?
There's approximately 23 feet from the edge of the curb in this location to the right-of-way line of Route 1. 23 feet.
Could you point to the edge of the line and to the parking spot?
The edge of the existing curb line is right through here.
Okay.
The new curb line is here, and the right-of-way line is right through here.
Okay. Now, the new space there, that is proposed space that you want to park there?
Correct. 14 new spaces, yes.
Okay, now, are you allowed to park there now?
No,
According to plan?
no.
You understand you've been parking there for about 2 years?
I haven't been parking there. I gather the Nissan dealership has been parking there. That's my understanding. And the understanding through the discussions with the municipality and professionals and the workshop meetings was to introduce to the board this proposed row of parking so that we could avoid having that issue moving forward.
Well, I just want to share, I do appreciate that after about 1.5 years, they did move the cars off the grass. But the problem I had allowing the additional parking is that there's no buffer zone at all on the frontage of this property. Every car is going right to the curb line. And that's the argument the community had for a long time. So basically, the complaint we had for a good 2 years that you resolved over the last 6 months is now something you intend to want to get approved for. Now, listen, I understand marketing, and this is the new wave to maximize every single spot you can. Nonetheless, you're asking for us to waive 9x18 to 8x17, understood. You have double stack parking and triple stack parking you're asking into the addition. And to the expert, how do you defend that this is something to alleviate traffic in cars when you're going from 61 cars? You have 161 today, and you want to use this space to alleviate the problem, but you're adding another 128, which is a total of, we don't know for sure, 289. So it's challenging to listen that this is going to alleviate when you've maximized just about every spot you possibly can in the new lot with having a backup radius. You can't fit any more there. And it just, the problem the community has always had, and I hope we find something through this application process, is there's no buffer zone along the curb line at all. And other dealerships that we've approved new on the block have at least offered a certain amount of green space between the car and the curb. I mean, I can see having a two-car island to jack a car up on its stands and build a hill. Everybody's doing some type of trajectory of a vehicle, but you're literally going all the way across with vehicles, which was the original problem we had. And that was not completely resolved. It was only resolved when you knocked the building down. So, and I appreciate that because neighbors were happy they were off the grass. So now you're adding to extend that permanently. And that just troubles me that this plan is about maximizing every car you can in the lot. And I think it's a safety issue. I won't disagree that there could be a fire zone there, but I have no factual discussion with the fire department about that. And that's where I have that challenge. If the fire person was here to defend you, I can see you maximizing some more spots. Without that report, I don't see why we're continuing this application, because that would make my life so much easier. And the other part, moving into your spare lot that you're here, how does the fire truck get into there? And that's my other question. How does the fire truck get into that location there, to the expert?
They would access it from the existing Nissan dealership. As I had indicated prior, they'll come in through this service driveway and negotiate themselves around the parking areas and then come through this connecting driveway and into this larger 34-foot wide service driveway if they ever had to come in there. But I think to the point that was discussed prior, I do believe there is some sort of an FDC connection maybe in this location here as per Mr. Mastalone's testimony. I would suspect that there may never even be a need for a fire truck to get into this location here. He could park himself here, connect to the FDC, or fight the fire from this location as opposed to getting in. But we will agree, we'll use the fire marshal's comments. I am certain that I'll be asked to provide a truck movement plan to show how emergency vehicles come and go through this site. We will provide that to him, and we'll agree to comply with whatever their requirements are. Back to the comment, however, with this additional row of parking along the highway, I just want to make sure everybody understands we are proposing this row of 14 parking spaces. These are dimensioned at 9 foot by 18 foot in order to be consistent with the existing row of parking, to not sort of have a staggered look or appearance with those parking spaces. There is still green space between the edge of the new parking and the back of the sidewalk along the highway of about 7 feet. We are proposing to continue that row of boxwood plantings along that frontage as well. And again, I will just make everyone aware that this buffer between the highway and this new parking row is consistent with the existing buffer space that's on the easterly side of the ingress driveway coming into the site. We are not any closer to the highway than this existing row of parking. We had felt it was an appropriate location to add some paved parking to control the amount of display spaces up against the highway and keep them off the grass.
Can you explain to me across the right part, the right side of the plan, to the right-hand corner of the new parking lot? Can you tell me, going across from right-hand side to the left-hand side, how much green space is in between? Is it 7 feet across?
Where are you talking about, sir? You're talking about this space in here?
The frontage.
Oh, this space in here?
Yeah, all the frontage of the new parking areas. Is it 7 feet across the entire area?
Yes, approximately 7 feet across the entire frontage, starting with the new parking area. And this is to the back edge of the concrete sidewalk along the highway. 7 feet along the frontage.
Yeah, back to the other part I have here is that the pre-existing approval from what you've had back in the day, you had more landscaping available and it was staggered across the front line of the property. Now you're maximizing every single spot. And listening to you, not being a fire expert, not knowing where things are exactly, specifically, again, it leaves a lot of open questions up And I don't think this application should go further. And I think this township has been very fair for the process we've been through before. But for the community and the complaints we've had in the past, I would love to see us just button it up the right way once and give you every opportunity you have. That's where my issue lies. And I hope this board would understand that. And I would think former Councilman Lenny Zendelsky could also attest to the several complaints we've had in that area. And although I know Mr. Phil has testified, he's been involved, he's solved problems, but the problems I was aware of that were only solved is when he knocked down the building, some of parking was alleviated. And again, his testimony is this is to alleviate, it's to maximize. There's no evidence to say this is not to maximize cars. You're bringing another 128 cars. You're going from 161 to 128. Madam Chair, I would move this application be held over. We can sit down and properly do this right. Walk this ground with Mr. Bignell. That's my consideration.
Now, I don't know if you can hear me.
Chairwoman,
Can you hear me?
can you hear me, Cher?
Can you hear me, Lillian?
I can hear you.
Okay, let's
Okay.
eliminate, let's
All right,
eliminate the exhibit.
let's just say we hold it over to October 19th. I'll get the reports from police, fire, and health. And I think they can make a clearer decision.
I agree.
First, can we just eliminate the exhibit, please? Okay. I think that we should hear from other board members before a decision is made in this regard.
That is fine with me.
Okay. So let's have some discussion.
Madam Chair, it's Mark Danielle. Mr. Rubin, don't you think it would be helpful for the applicant, if we're actually thinking of going this route, to go through the reports? Because if we want them to bring something else, let's not ask them.
Yes, I agree.
In October. Let's have a to-do list of what they need to do. And if again, I'm not there yet, but I'm willing to be open-minded. So like number one is the fire chief's report and all those things. But if there are other things that are on this list, because I see other violations, and Hank, we're going to need you to jump in here. For example, the fee. Does the applicant realize they got to pay $13,000 pursuant to Section H of what is it? It's 12H. Again, let's kind of go through. And I know everybody's been trying to do that, but we've just been having a lot of issues. If we could go through the experts' reports, and Mr. Carley also, and give them some guidance, that is the applicant.
The whole picture.
It's a good rateable. Look, they're trying. May not be as fast as some people would like, and the new people on the block here, Mr. Turner and the engineer. We're supposed to help them, not do their work for them, but tell them what we think we have concerns about. And so we know, Mr. Crowell, you bring up some great points. So let's see if we can. I don't want to add to the list to give them more work, but let's be fair and give them a definitive to-do list if there is such a thing. And Mr. Bignell, and Mr. Crowley, if you have any things to add to that, I think it'd be helpful to get this, a fair review of this project. If people feel otherwise, then I'll stop talking.
I concur.
Well,
I agree.
Can we go through the Mr. Carley and Mr. Bignell's reports with Mr. Turner?
I think that would be a good idea.
Okay.
I mean, we do have our witnesses here. So, Mr. Turner, you've reviewed the reports of Mr. Carley on engineering dated September 14th, and Mr. Bignell's report dated September 9th, correct?
Correct.
All right. And you actually have had discussions with Mr. Carley regarding his report?
Yes, I had a discussion earlier today with Mr. Carley, yes.
All right. And can you tell us what the resolution of your discussion was with regard to complying with his recommendations?
Sure. So our discussion, and Mr. Carley, you can certainly jump in if I misspeak, but I did ask Mr. Carley a number of questions in regards to some of his comments in his staff report, given the fact that we're here seeking approval for a new parking lot for all intents and purposes, and nothing to do with the existing building on the property. So we talked specifically about item 2.6 on page 2, where there are a number of comments relating to a fire protection plan that needs to be provided to the satisfaction of the Edison Township Fire Marshal. Mr. Carley and I discussed that, and I asked Mr. Carley if I could satisfy that comment as long as we satisfied the town fire marshal, and he agreed that that would be acceptable. Item 3.2 on page 2, I provided the testimony in regards to the number of parking spaces for employees and customers. Same page, we go down to items 5 regarding stormwater management. In particular, 5.1 and 5.2. I did have a discussion in regards to the application being considered a major development. I agreed to provide Mr. Carley with documentation that would indicate that we are not disturbing more than 1 acre of land, and nor do we have more than 0.25 acres of new impervious coverage. Therefore, in my opinion, we are not considered a major development for the purposes of the requirements of NJAC 7:8, which is the New Jersey Stormwater Management Rule. I believe Mr. Carley agreed, as long as I provided him with documentation for his review, he would be okay with that. And that would really address items 5.1, 5.2, and then that was really it. On page 3, item 5.6, I just pointed out to Mr. Carley that we really, he speaks on 5.6 about a proposed detention facility discharging into an existing collection system, and he is correct that we are discharging into an existing collection system. However, it's not a detention basin or a detention system. It really is nothing more than a couple of inlets and a couple of underground pipes to collect runoff. I did agree, however, to provide him with calculations to demonstrate adequate capacity. And then lastly, on page 4, items 6.1 and 6.2. These are items that I don't think I directly addressed with Mr. Carley. I just would like to get on record in regards to the sewer report and the potable water supply report. Again, since we're not doing anything in regards to the building itself, we're not improving the building, we're not adding to the building, I would suggest or ask that we not have to provide any specific sewer or water reports in regards to the existing conditions. Again, we're just building a parking lot here, and I'll wait for Mr. Carley to provide some commentary on that. Item 8.1 on page 4, which is a fiscal impact statement being provided. Again, no building development, just a new inventory lot. You know, I would ask that we not be required to provide a fiscal impact statement for this type of application. And I think that was it. Everything else in Mr. Carley's report, we will comply with.
Let me ask at this time, Mr. Carley?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, Mr. Turner's, I guess, representation of our review of my letter is accurate. This is the second iteration of the plans that I've taken a look at. As Mr. Bignell offered earlier today, this is there's been a significant back and forth relative to the project over the last few months. I would just, again, in the interest of having a complete file, and I think it's very important to the board, particularly after tonight, that the fire marshals either sign off on the proposal or a fire protection plan should be provided. The parking situation, as Councilman Coyle noted, you have about 300 parking spots on site. About 130 of them would be for inventory. And so we asked Mr. Turner to provide some testimony describing what's what. I think he's done that adequately. Relative to stormwater management, Mr. Turner is going to have to update his stormwater management report, which reflects an older proposal to reflect the newer proposal. I'm scrolling through my report. In terms of sanitary sewer and potable water, again, I'm sure that when, as is his custom, Mr. Turner replies to our report in a more formal manner, he'll provide some language in his reply that meets those comments. Solid waste management, similarly, in terms of generation of waste, wouldn't imagine that this is a big waste generator, but we want to make sure that what they're providing is adequate. One of the things that Mr. Turner should consider when he puts that quick map together is the location of that dumpster site. When Mr. Danielle was talking about it, and I was looking at the site plan, it occurred to me that the dumpster is a pretty good distance away from the building. And it might be not just for the benefit, well, primarily for the benefit of the residents that abut the property, but as much for the benefit of operations that it were closer to the building. So you don't have people hauling solid waste 100 yards in each direction. Fiscal impact statement, as Mr. Turner related, it's what's being proposed is a lot of asphalt, nothing built, but it's still a checklist requirement that'll require the board's waiver. And then we have our typical miscellaneous things that if the board looks upon the application favorably, we would look for the applicant to coordinate construction with the township's engineering department. And then there's other agency permits, et cetera, et cetera. I believe that the closure of those two driveway cuts will require some interaction with DOT. I just don't know which one it will. It won't be an access permit because they're eliminating access as it appears to be. And that's about the length and breadth of my report, Madam Chair.
Yes,
Madam
thank
Chair,
you,
this
Mr.
is-
Carley.
Madam Chair, this is Michael
Madam
Rubin.
Chair.
I think just I need something clarified. My understanding was they are not going to close any of the curb cuts on Route 1 for the restaurant lot.
Right.
And I just think that needs to be clarified.
I believe from a practical perspective that they are. I mean, they are, I'll call it quote unquote, planting 2 rows deep of parking spots there, right in front of them. So from a practical perspective, those curb cuts are closed.
I agree, but do they physically have to close them?
Well, that's between them and NJDOT. I suspect that NJDOT will want them closed because although the dialogue here has been the more curb cuts, the better, DOT looks at it 180 degrees opposite.
Yeah, right.
Property, they'll give you in and an out, but they don't want you to have multiple ins and outs. So we would look.
We have to comply with DOT.
Huh? Yeah.
We have to comply with DOT, whatever they say.
For, like I said, I don't think it's an access permit per se. It's certainly not a drainage permit, but we would look for a quote unquote love letter with DOT's letterhead on it saying what you're proposing is acceptable to us.
We agree. We have to provide Mr. Carley and the board with that information.
Madam Chair, I have a question for Mr. Carley and,
Yes,
and maybe
Mr.
Mr. Rubin
Danielle?
can weigh in. Yes, could you weigh in, Mr. Carley and Mr. Rubin? It says 9.1, the applicant should consolidate the lots by deed. Mr. Carley, are you requiring that? Or Mr. Rubin, is that required by law?
The lot
Nine-
consolidation
9
plan that they proposed will be a condition of approval. So
Okay.
essentially,
So
they'll end up with 2 lots, one in one block, because there's a block line that cuts through the property. They'll have 1 lot on one block and 1 lot on another block.
But it'll be consolidated, as Mr. Carley says, right?
Yeah, but there'll still be 2 lots. It'll still be a split.
Okay.
It'll be a split lot property still, a split They'll have two lots. It'll be split between two lots, but there'll be two lots and two blocks. They can't consolidate them all into one because they're in two blocks.
Okay, I defer to you on that. So my comment, Madam Chair, is for Mr. Shire. I wrote a to-do list here as Mr. Carley was going through and your engineer. So there's a list here that you folks need to kind of take care of before the next meeting if we go that route. You agree?
Well, I mean, you could approve subject to Mr. Turner satisfying Mr. Carley with preliminary approval, which, it seems like a logical way of doing it. I mean, there's always a to-do list after preliminary. And then, as far as the fire marshal, which seems to be one of the biggest concerns, I mean, you could approve subject to the applicant satisfying the concerns of the fire marshal and Mr. Bignell as far as the fire safety is concerned. I mean, that's, I don't see a problem with that. They generally require you to show maneuverability of a fire apparatus on the property, which can be done with a template. I would just like to, but I do know, I think Scott knows what he has to do for Mr. Carley. And if we could, I'd like to go through Mr. Bignell's recommendations.
So no other comments. I think at this point it would be appropriate to go through Mr. Bignell's report.
Okay, Mr. Turney, you had the opportunity to review Mr. Bignell's latest report dated September 9th, correct?
Correct.
All right. Could you comment on his plan review comments under number 12, A through J?
Yes, it starts on page 4 at the bottom of the sheet, plan review comments. We will agree to provide all the documentation of approvals that are required. That's under item A. Item B, we just spoke about the consolidation of the lot into 2 parcels. We agreed to do that as well. Moving on to page 5. Item C, this is in regards to the 25-foot deep rear buffer along the entire rear yard of the site. Mr. Bignell points out that the one intruding parking space shall be eliminated. The dumpster area shall be relocated 7 foot south to provide the 25-foot setback, and that the area should be landscaped with a mix of shade trees in addition to the proposed arborvitae trees. We are here again seeking approval to allow us to provide a less buffer than 25 feet, but consistent with the existing buffer behind the car dealership lot itself. We do agree, however, we will provide some additional landscaping within the area. I think Mr. Carley's point is well taken. I think we will revisit the location of the dumpster pad and see if we can get that somewhere located closer to the dealership lot itself. Mr. Mastalone and I will work on that. However, we are seeking some relief in regards to that rear yard buffer. If the board is so inclined not to provide that buffer, we'll revisit that and determine how we can somehow accommodate the 25 feet. Item D, subject to the input of the board engineer, the entire proposed parking lot shall be enclosed with curbing. Again, my testimony was that the easterly and westerly sides of this new parking lot will be curbed. However, for drainage purposes, we are asking that the northerly and southerly sides of the new parking lot be maintained as edge of pavement for drainage flow purposes. The area is relatively flat. By introducing curbs in that area, I think would be a detriment to the overall drainage flow into the new parking area. Item E.
Can I interrupt for a moment?
Sure.
Mr. Carley, did you have a comment? This is Mr. Bignell's report, but it said input from the board engineer. This is item D of Mr. Bignell's report.
I'm sorry, I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty. It's Mr. Bignell's comment has to do with curbing the entire parking lot. You know, that the issue with that, as Mr. Turner provided testimony earlier, is that they're not really changing the drainage characteristics. Now, they, meaning the applicant, does need to provide an updated drainage report, but they're replacing paved areas with paved areas. And if they put curb in, well, then they will be changing drainage characteristics dramatically. So if it can be done readily, I would say, in the interest of having the pavement maintain its integrity over the long haul, something that's like at the pressed curb, so the pavement stays intact along its edges. But I don't know that you want to have a full reveal curb, because then you're going to be filling in areas along
What are you doing?
property lines. And then that becomes, are you impounding water on adjacent properties? That becomes an issue with that. Because you will have to raise the grade in those, and even though it's not raising the grade by, 4 feet, but 6 inches can cause you to have a swampy side yard when you only have a 5-foot lawn area with a neighbor. So if the press curb, I feel better about it than if it was full reveal curb.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bignell, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just looking for control in the parking lot, but if it causes a drainage issue, I certainly have no problem with dealing with Mr. Carley. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, now the curb would keep, I don't know how old Mr. Mastaloni is and if he expects to live for another 25 to 50 years. But without the curb, the edges of that pavement will break up will break up a lot sooner than later. So there's a practical benefit to providing it, but I just would hate to see full reveal curb.
Understood.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Item E
Scott,
is
you want to continue?
Sure, yes. So item E, additional shade and evergreen trees should be provided in the 15-foot wide west side yard of the site. That is an area where we're really not doing any type of activity that is, I guess, along the side of the existing Nissan dealership. We'll agree to review that area in regards to what the existing landscaping look like, and if we can supplement the plantings that are there with some additional trees, we will agree to do that. Item F, the frontage of the expansion lot shall be redesigned. The plan shall remove the depressed curb areas and provide a continuous full-face curb to meet NJDOT requirements along the entire frontage of the expansion lot. The only vehicle access would be by way of the main dealership. Driveway, all concrete and macadam, shall be removed in the frontage area. The hedgerow on the frontage of the site shall be continued along the frontage of the expansion lot. So I did provide testimony, and we are, for all intents and purposes, doing what Mr. Bignell asks. We did redesign that area to provide our parking row, and then we have a landscape strip with a full line of boxwood plantings, and then we're providing the sidewalk to connect to the existing sidewalks. And of course, those driveway openings, the curb cuts along that frontage are subject to NJDOT requirements. Our plan right now is to maintain them, but nobody could ever use them in terms of the car dealership being at the site, given the fact that there will be landscaping in its way, as well as the concrete bumper blocks that we're proposing along the row of parking stalls. So I believe we're compliant. Mr. Bignell, you can jump in if I misspeak, but I think we're complying with item number F, or letter F.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Bignell.
yeah, my concern was that this area would be opened up and it'd be like the driveway and they could run cars in and out of there. The applicant did a pretty good job of putting in the bumper blocks and the edge of the pavement I was just concerned to eliminate the access, and the plan before the board eliminates the access, it'll probably be up to DOT whether they get the concrete curbing in or not. And I understand that maybe in the future, if this is not a dealership, you may want to then look to subdivide this property off or whatever again. It'd be very difficult to get a curb cut from the DOT. So I have no problem with the way it's been designed. Maybe, I understand the concern of the board for a wider buffer, but that's something you guys have to give us some direction on. But as far as the access, I have no problem with the way it's laid out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Hank. Item G, just adding a plan note that the undersized stall shall be used for inventory storage only. We agree to comply with that. Item H is regarding documentation of submission of the ordinance requirement of $500 per outstanding tree. By way of the plan as it stands today, that would require a $13,000 contribution. I believe what we're going to do is to provide some additional landscaping on the property. Hopefully that will knock that number down some, and then that will be recalculated. However, the applicant, of course, will comply to, will agree to comply with whatever contribution is needed. The hope, though, however, is to knock that $13,000 down somewhat by the additional tree replacement on the property.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Bignell.
if the applicant, we're talking 26 trees, but if the applicant increases the caliper, they'll get some credits. There's some places on site where they can plant some of these trees and bring that number way down. So it's not as large a cash amount to the town. Save them a few dollars that way, but it might be a larger caliber tree. But there is some areas where they can still do some planting and bring that number down.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, item I regarding the documentation for the pipeline buffering, we will submit that. Item J, the applicant has removed all the display vehicles that were parked along the public right-of-way as per the requirements of the TRC. That's just a comment that has been addressed. I believe that is all of those items.
Okay, anyone else from the board? Mr. Coyle, Councilman Coyle?
Could, the last notation he made, I'm sorry, I don't have Mr. Bignell's report in front of me, and do my best to find it. But the last thing he talked about, the cars on the right-of-way. Could he repeat that last to the expert?
Was it a plan note you're asking about?
In Mr. Bignell's report, you were addressing the last two items. Could you address the last two items?
Oh, sure. It's item I, which was the pipeline buffering documentation.
Okay. I got that. Next.
Item J.
The applicant has removed all display vehicles. This is just a comment that the applicant has removed all the display vehicles that were parked along the public right-of-way as per the requirements of the technical review committee.
But in
I
this,
think it was J.
That was item J, yes.
That's item J, yeah.
now, question to the expert, Mr. Turner. You're saying you're going to remove all of them, but in this plan, you're proposing to have approval for them to be put back there as part of the new plan, correct?
No, that's not correct. We're not proposing any parking within the public right-of-way. Everything is on site.
Okay, but you were parking in the pre-existing right-of-way. I can't see the plan to what you're trying to speak to, but I only have knowledge of the complaints for the last 2 years. So forgive me for just bringing note to this, but I'm open to work on being a good neighbor. So I'm not here to deter what you're trying to accomplish, but I'm just explaining for the record. I'm hearing you saying you're going to remove cars from the right-of-way, cars that I've seen you go into the street, back up, hop over the curb, and park in the right-of-way, to my knowledge, to my photographs, to me visiting on site, to listening to neighbors complain about this, to you telling me you're going to remove them, that's where the complaint came from. I see in this plan in the front, middle, okay, and I also see it on Google Maps, you can see it. You're parking cars back there in that right-of-way. That is the right-of-way today. Unless you want to point to the right-of-way that Mr. Bignell's addressing, that would clarify my question.
So I think where Mr. Bignell is speaking about possibly, and Mr. Bignell, you can jump in. along Loring Avenue, there was, I think, an issue with cars being parked along Loring Avenue. Those cars have been removed. There's no cars that will be parked along Loring Avenue. Is that correct, Mr. Bignell?
My item J referred to the cars that were parked along Route 1.
Along
Route 1.
Yeah, they were parked up on the grass area along the right of way. So, measuring it, it appeared that they were in the right of way and on their property.
Okay.
When we discussed this during TRC, we said to the applicant, look, if you need the parking there, you at least have to make it legal. So that's why his proposal says what it does now. It puts it back onto his property. It'll be in a uniform way, and it eliminates some of the landscaping, but at the same time, it takes it out of the right of way. So, and my recent drive-by showed that all those vehicles had been removed. That had been there. Mr. Coyle's been right. Councilman Coyle was right, because they've been there for a while, and they've been removed now. That's what I was just trying to point out in my report.
And
Okay, thank
Mr. Turner, another question I have for you is that I definitely see some opportunity of making this plan better for what you're trying to accomplish into the safety. But the other part is that I think you're going to have a challenge, and the challenge we've had before is managing your employees. Now, though Phil said he's not on site every day, and I'm not asking him to answer this question, but I see a history of a problem with your staff, and if they can hop over a curb and back up to display more cars on the street, when you look at the concept of you creating storage, I don't even think it's user friendly that you don't have some type of egress from that area. And I know that the DOT, you have impressions there already. I'm open to the board giving you this opportunity to keep one of those depressions for a fire exit, because when you say you're going to use the boxwood shrubs to cover the parking and to eliminate the curb, your history doesn't talk about that, because your history has cut down shrubs, drove over shrubs, hopped over curbs. This is your employees. I'm not saying it's the management of Mr. Phil, but this is what I've seen. And when I look at this storage area, which is at the maximum of what it can be, which is a true safety disaster in my view. And without hearing from the fire marshal, I'm challenged. But today, I don't see why you don't propose having cars be able to leave that area for an emergency and keeping a fire exit in the right-hand top corner of the front of the property. It just makes practical sense. I mean, you got them stuffed in there. Not only do you have cars stuffed in the front, you have cars parked behind the cars. They're gonna jump over that curb anyway. I mean, I've seen this. I've been watching this project for 2.5 years. I've been taking calls for 2.5 years. I was looking forward to you come to the board so we can eliminate this, not to add more cars and add more cars. But if the board agrees, I can't argue what you're allowed to do. But I think that's something, if this is held over, you should look at. And that's something I wouldn't argue for you, because that whole right-hand corner, I mean, once you get in there, you're landlocked in there. And you have 138 cars in that new area. It just seems impossible they won't need an area to just get out in case of emergency, because they're going to create their own out. They already have. So it's just something open for your discussion with the experts when this application's held over, if the board chooses to do so. I think
Do
you
I
should
have
take
anyone else from the board that would like to speak?
I would
Madam
like
Chair,
to ask.
last, I just
Councilman,
want
I
to
didn't mean
say,
to cut you off.
Madam Chair, the applicant should take advantage of the time we're giving them. I think it would be to their best interest. That's up to them and the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Reader?
I just wanted to add to basically highlight one area that Councilman Coyle was mentioning, but also regarding to safety and access of emergency vehicles or customers coming in. The main entrance to that lot and the exit to that lot intersect where you're about to install double parking on each side of that. And that just poses a safety hazard. If I'm understanding correctly, The cars at the frontage of the property are there for display. I don't see why there has to be double space there, stacking them. And, to Mr. Coyle's point, if we're trying to relieve the amount of congestion in that entrance, in that front area for people to get in and out safely, then, let's relieve it. Let's put them in the new storage area, and let's minimize the parking at that front traffic area.
Madam Chair.
Thank you
Dennis
for your comment. Yes,
Madam
Mr. Pippola.
It seems to me, and I think of the approval of this application should not take place tonight because of the importance of the fire marshal's review of what he's of the situation. Because one, it directly affects, I think, a point that Mr. McNell made about we want to note the maximum number of cars we want on that. So we need that to be a definitive number. And unless we have his review of this, it may affect that number, and I don't think we should go without it. The second point I want to make, in that back, they're asking for a variance in that back northern setback of 25 feet. But I think if you look closely at the plans, if you eliminate 2 parking spaces, you could eliminate those need for a variance. And then the hundreds that we're talking about, 2 seems to be something that can happen, along with Mr. Carley's suggestion of moving that trash bin. But even without that, if you lose 2 parking spaces, you could eliminate the need for that variance totally. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pippola. Anyone else from the board?
Chairwoman, can you hear me?
Yes, Lily?
Okay.
Yes, can you hear me?
I mean,
Okay.
yes, I can hear you. We can move them till October 19th and let them, you can go ahead and do a preliminary and do a final, or just hold them over for a vote.
Well, also, we would need to open to the public, right? So are we opening to the public, or their application, if we carry it, we
Well,
can?
you can carry it and then open to the public then. But
Right.
that's up to our attorney.
Yes, Mr. Rubin.
I think that if you are going to take any vote, you need to open it up to the public. If you're going to carry it, you do not need to open it to the public. Before we take any vote, Mr. Danielle may have a list of items, but to have some comprehensive list of items would be helpful.
I'll defer to my friend, Mr. Pippola, because he always has a more comprehensive list, but well, again, why do we need to go through that list if we're not going to have a prelim?
Because you want, they should be informed
Well,
of the
it's up
changes you
to
want
the
from
board if they want to.
Well, if the board's going to ask for a prelim, then we have to make it subject to all the conditions, correct?
No, but I think it would be helpful if the board were to communicate with the applicant the changes to the plan that they're looking for. Just, it's gone up and back and around. I think there should be some kind of a summary.
I really do think that Mr. Carley needs some more information. So maybe we should just hold it over and for revised plans. But that's my opinion. That's up to you guys.
But, okay, so taking that,
Madam Chair.
speak 1 second?
Yes.
Just 1 second, Mr. Coyle. Mr. Coyle, 1 second. So I know Joe has some concerns. I have a couple of things I could add to the list. I'm sure Mr. Pippola, but again, remember my comment was we're trying to be helpful to make this a better application, and it's better for the
Of
town.
course.
So I'll take my first couple things. If you look at Mr. Carley's report, we're going to need a fire protection plan. We're going to have to update the solid waste management report. You're going to have to do a fiscal impact. I realize it's a pain and its use doesn't really apply here. So there was a couple of things there I saw. And Mr. Pippola, you sit next to me. We usually take good notes. And then Mr. Coyle has some things on his list probably. So the other couple from Mr. Carley's report, I'll let someone else speak and I can go to my other documents in my list. If anybody else has any other thing.
I thought
That's
that
what
there
I'm
was someone
saying. It
else.
seems like they need revised plans.
But Lily, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying, as Mr. Quill said, and Mr. Rubin, we're trying to give them some things. Oh, the other item is.
Oh, no,
consider
that's
moving-
fine. You could do whatever.
Yeah, consider moving the dumpster closer to the property.
Right.
That was another one, so. I had asked for a drip line. That wasn't mentioned in anybody's report. A drip line along Route 1 and along the side where the old restaurant was, just because you have boxwoods and they use a lot of water. Mr. Dennis or Councilman Coyle, you have any other helpful
Thank you, Mr.
items?
Dan. Madam President, Madam Chair, I'm sorry, the issue I have first is to not allow any increase of vehicles on the pre-existing lot. That would be number one.
I don't know
Zero,
why I'm having trouble hearing.
hold on here. Is that better? Can anybody else? Okay,
She froze.
okay. Madam Chair,
The chairwoman's
hear him.
computer seems to have frozen. So maybe we should just wait a second
Isn't it-
until she comes back on live. There we go.
Okay. I don't know what happened.
All right, there you go.
Madam Chair, the first suggestion to the experts is that we don't allow any increase of vehicles to the pre-existing plan, and I'm open to bringing, it's rather than double stacking the cars in the front where we had the original problem. If they want to pull forward their cars and go from 25 feet to 18 feet, I can see that point to try to get a measurable marketplace in the on Route 1. Problem is they're limiting a lot of landscaping and they're turning their once beautiful approved parking design back in its day before shrubs were knocked over, before there were parking everywhere, to have more landscaping. So I don't expect landscaping to be above the curb line of their bumper. It should be reasonable so they still have a market share of a car view. But I don't agree with any cars in the pre-existing area to be additional. I believe that egress therefore on Loring was intended for the purpose for the fire truck to come straight in without a turning radius and fight the fire. I don't agree with any opinion other than from an expert how a fire should be fought, not from a dealership manager. The other part is the additional lot that they have where they're using for storage. They say intended storage. I'd have a tough time policing intended storage, and I don't think that's ever going to be possible. But there are too many vehicles in there. That's the first thing. It should be decreased. I don't disagree with Mr. Pippola with the buffer in the back, 2 cars for some extra buffer. But the real problem I have in that location is they should take a look at taking advantage of an opportunity to create an outlet there if the regulatory DOT and our experts would agree. I just believe that storage area is going to become an entire landlocked. You got triple stack cars, double stack cars, and double stack cars against cars facing the highway. It's a valet nightmare just to get the cars in there. I don't see why they would not take advantage of listening to our engineers if there's an opportunity to have emergency access out if needed to be. And whatever is done on this plan should be curbed on the front yard. I don't trust that their employees are going to listen to shrubs. They haven't in the past. They've jumped over curbs, and I'd like to see something at least more structural, that they won't go over the curb onto the street, back up onto the green area like they've done in the past. I'm just sharing my experience of the policing of their employees, which is documented by photographs, numerous complaints, phone calls I've received, and emails I've shared, and I'm certain Councilman Zendelski can speak the same. I'm happy they've complied today, but I'd like to hear last, what is their explanation for this being to alleviate traffic in place? Because they've doubled the amount of cars, so that should be addressed, because that was the statement that the manager said. This intended purpose was to alleviate the traffic. It's not. They're adding another 138 cars. They're almost doubling what their pre-existing is. So they're the thing. And last, of course, the fire marshal's report and a turning radius that's safe from that. That's all I have at this time.
Okay, thank you
Madam
for your
Chair.
comments.
Madam Chair, Don Correct.
Yes. Yes, Mr. Corrett.
The one question I have about the parking area is we say that all of the employee parking would be on site. As we've requested before, they should designate parking spaces for employees, because we all know if an employee comes in and he can't find a space, he's going to park on Loring Avenue or someplace outside of there, whether or not they're supposed to.
Yeah, thank you for your comment. It's a good one. Anyone else from the board?
And Madam Chair, last,
Yeah, Councilman.
I'm not open to any waivers for this application. That would include the parking that they have in the storage lot. I'm not open to the waivers. That's for discussion.
Okay, well, also we need to decide if we're just going to carry it at this point.
Well, I would like to present my planner, who's here to testify only as to the two variances, so he doesn't have to come back.
Okay, let me
Well, if the
speak to
site plan
Mr. Rubin.
changes, are you eliminating stuff? I mean, if you're changing the site plan,
Well, the only two variances are the parking stall sizes, which are for inventory, and whether the 25-foot buffer can reasonably be, I guess, violated. And the applicant has already indicated that if the board feels it should not, we would comply. We could remove a couple of the parking spaces in the new lot area, but that's the only two variances that are required in the application. So I don't think his testimony would be necessary for any, we're not going to create any new variances, that's for sure.
May I just comment on that, Michael Rubin?
Yes, Mr. Rubin?
It seems to me that the overwhelming sentiment of the board is that you're going to eliminate at least one of the variances, which is the buffer. So I don't know why you'd need testimony to address a variance that the board strongly wants you to eliminate. It seems to me that
Well, if that is the board's desire, that's I understand, but we do need his testimony as to the parking stall size.
I leave that to Mr. Bignell.
yeah, well, that may change if the fire marshal says you can't have this or you can't have that. So, it may change the parking layout or whatever. I mean, you want to put the testimony forward, that's fine, but I don't know.
Madam Chair, I have a comment. So, Mr. Shire, you and I are in the same business, so clients are always worried about fees. It seems to me that since everything's kind of, not everything, but a lot of this is depending on the fire marshal, I would suggest holding your planner so the poor guy can be prepared for whatever shows up. I know he's going to get paid for today, but I'd rather do it. It seems to me it would be better for everybody. He's dealing with the same cars that we'll be dealing with when we get the cards handed out by the fire marshal. And then we can ask questions to him about his testimony, because his testimony may have to change, and you have to bring him back again. That just doesn't seem efficient.
If that is the desire of the board, obviously we're going to be bound by it. So,
well, it's not. I'm just one board member, Mr. Shire. I'm just trying to think of being expedient and efficient, because I hear that every day from clients. So it seems to me. We had Mr. Turner's, very thorough presentation, but the planner sounds. It could, as Mr. Bignell kind of just as a side note mentioned, it could change. Unless I'm missing something. If I am, then you guys tell me that.
if it does have to change, we we can bring him back.
I think we've wasted enough time talking about whether he should testify or not. I think that we should just postpone his testimony until the next meeting.
I agree.
I agree.
That's where I was going. So I think it's only fair to the applicant.
Sherry,
That's the
the next
board.
meeting is October 19th.
Okay, October 19th.
And
Let
what is
me
the,
out.
Lillian, what's the schedule look that day?
It's big, but we'll have to do it.
Okay, that's fine.
That'll be without further notice?
And you waive all
Without
time,
further notice, yeah.
and you
yeah.
waive all time constraints?
Yes, yes.
But remember, I haven't opened the public portion, so if anyone's listening on Zoom, then October 19th is your opportunity then to speak as to this application.
And the Zoom login information will be posted on the township website, correct, Lillian?
Yes, it is.
And Madam Chair, there's no comments for this application at all, correct?
Because it's being carried.
Not, right, it's being carried.
Just want to make sure the public understands if they get on for other things on the agenda, that this application, there'll be no comments on this application.
Well, no, that's not.
Is that correct or not?
At this time, there'll be public comment at the October 19th meeting.
Okay.
That was what I was trying to clarify
Yeah.
for anyone listening,
Yeah.
that they have their opportunity on October 19th.
Okay.
We need a motion.
Madam Chair, motion to hold over on this application till October 19th.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All in
Okay, Lillian?
favor?
Oh, we're just going to do
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So this will be carried until October 19th.
Yes.
Are we doing revised plans? What are we doing in the meantime?
Well, I'm going to talk to Skip tomorrow. I think they should do revised plans. What do you
It's all
think, Hank?
predicated on what the fire marshal does. He's the key
Yeah, I think the
element.
fire marshal
Yeah,
should
we-
be, the
I think
fire
we
marshal
need to
should
hear
look at
No,
the
I
first.
understand that. He has them. I'll go there tomorrow. But the fact of the matter is that they were talking about other things also. They need to revise their plans.
Well, they could easily say that they're gonna move the two spaces and take them out of the buffer, not create a variance.
No,
And they
I
could-
think
Right.
the board needs to see where, I think the board needs to see where they're gonna put the dumpster.
Yeah,
I think,
Right.
I don't think that the board should just simply approve without revised plans in front of them to at
Yes.
least show where the dumpster's gonna be.
I agree.
How the parking lot will lay out differently if they maintain that 25-foot buffer at the end. I
Okay,
don't know whether the
the
board
reason-
even wants turning radius is submitted.
but the reason why I asked the question about revised plans, because they had to be here then by October 8th, so we get an opportunity and they're on file 10 days prior to the hearing.
All right. Is Skip on the line? Is he listening to this?
I'm here, I'm here,
Skip?
I'm here.
Okay, Hank, tell him that.
You have to have the
I know,
plans,
I
the
heard that.
revised plans by October 8th.
When do you think I can have the fire marshal's comments? I mean, that's the.
I'll have it tomorrow. I'll
Okay.
go to him tomorrow and find it.
All right, very good.
May I just ask Mr.
Okay.
Carley two questions? May I just ask Mr. Carley two questions?
Yes, Mr. Carley. Mr. Rubin has two questions for you.
Why is the sky blue and was the meaning of life?
And
First,
Charlie,
do you need to
and
see
he
any,
had questions too.
do you need to see any turning radius plans?
You know what? That would go towards meeting a comment that Councilman Coyle offered in terms of, in his experience, just making sure that there is adequate circulation across the site by single unit trucks.
So the
I
answer-
think.
But excuse me, Charlie, did you want other information?
Well, I'm just answering Mr. Rubin's call on
Yeah.
turning radius.
No, I understand.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just,
so-
that's one
In the
question.
revised plans, don't you need other information?
Yes. They went over
Yes,
that.
But relative to the circulation plan, I believe it would be of benefit for the next hearing.
Okay.
Right, but what about the stormwater and all that I
He
was
needs
hearing
all
you
that,
talk about?
Lillian, he needs all that. We already laid that out. This is in addition to
Okay,
all
that's
that.
fine. I'm just saying. Okay.
My next question I have for you, Mr. Carley, is assuming these additional 14 spaces that are between the two driveway curb cuts, the entrance and exit, is there a sight distance problem coming out of the exit driveway with those cars move closer to the property line?
Because it's a right-in and right-out controlled, I don't believe so, but I'll pay a little extra added attention to that before the next hearing.
Okay, thank
And
you.
I'd encourage Mr. Turner to do as well.
And
I will do
to
that.
the expert, Madam Chair,
Yes,
Charles,
Councilman.
I don't disagree with it being an easy out, but you got to look at the site triangle. There's a blind spot there. If the cars are out to the nose of the curb, by the time you get your nose out to take a look, you're in Route 1. You're in the lane.
Yeah, it depends on where the stop sign is, where the stop bar is.
Okay.
And then you're looking over your left shoulder and people are churning down that road they're obeying the speed limit at 55, I'm sure, in every case.
I mean, I think that was the first intended approval. That's why there were no cars on top of that right away, because you can see in the pre-existing plan, there's cars on the beginning because it's ingress, but on the outgress, there's no cars there because of that blind spot. That's what I would believe, but I'm not the expert, you are.
No, we'll double check it and triple check it and make sure the board has exhibits to illustrate what the situation is there such that it can adjudicate the application appropriately.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Okay. If we can go on then on our agenda. Finals, there are none. We're on to miscellaneous. And hopefully my dogs are not going to bark. So on miscellaneous, I'm having trouble with my technology. My phone and technology is running out of charge.
Thank you. Okay, so I suggest you just do the miscellaneous and do all the resolution numbers and put it all in one vote.
Okay, so let me, before I lose everyone.
Right, do the resolution numbers.
So if you're following along on the agenda, number 1, comments and recommendations on resolution 336-072020. The next one, number 2, is resolution 337-07020. Number 3 on the agenda, resolution 338-07, and then it's 2020. I'll read it that way. That'll save some time. Number 4 on the list, resolution 339-07-2020. Number 5, resolution 340-07-2020. Number 6, resolution 346-07-2020. And number 7, resolution 347-07-2020.
Madam Chair.
Just for the record, if I may, Lillian, just hold on. Just for the record, these are all resolutions referring redevelopment studies to the planning board.
Yes.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
go ahead.
From council.
Madam Chair.
Right.
Madam Chair. Madam Chair.
Yes.
I'd like to
Hopefully
make
you can hear me.
I would like to make a motion that we forward these resolutions to Mr. Bignell for him and his team to review them and come back to us if they meet or don't the criteria for area in need of redevelopment. I would also suggest to Mr. Bignell that since it was raised at the last meeting that there's quite a number of them here, that he may want to reach out to the council to see if there is a priority listing of which ones they want done first. And at the same time, keep us abreast if we're having an issue because of the volume of activity. If we need to do something different, you will alert us to that fact.
Yeah, that's fine, Mr. Pippo.
Okay, I just need a second.
Second,
Second.
Who was that?
John.
John?
Well,
Okay,
just Lenny and John.
okay. Okay, Ms. Ruggieri.
Yes. We're doing individual vote on this?
No, all at once.
Yes.
Or we're
Okay,
doing all in favor?
all in favor? All in favor?
Aye, aye.
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 All in favor.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you for the
On
work.
to our last, I'm sorry?
Thank you for the work.
Oh, thank you, Mr.
Yeah, you'll be
Mr.
sorry
McDowell.
soon.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm always sorry.
What's the problem?
We
when you
haven't
finish
said
your job?
anything about paying you, Hank.
Yeah, I know. That's always the problem, right?
Okay, we're on to the last item. Any comments from the public?
I think they're all sleeping.
No, we have three people from the public. Four.
Okay, if we can allow them to
Okay.
speak?
Sir Harold Backus. Please unmute.
We can hear you.
Can you
Mr.
hang
Backus,
up?
from the public, please unmute.
Mr. Backus, can you unmute your microphone?
We'll move on to the next one and maybe come back.
Maybe try the next person or?
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear your name and address.
Sure. Ron Loeffler, 6 Nancy Circle, Edison.
Hi, Ron. It's Lillian.
Hi, Lillian. How are you tonight?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Go ahead.
I have some general questions for the planning board. I was reading the code book, and I think it's section 39.4. And there's a lot of words in there. Prepare and after public hearing, adopt from time to time, amend the master plan. And it speaks in guide the lands of the township in a manner which protects the public health, safety, and promotes general welfare. So I'm trying to get a feeling of what's meant by that. What guides you that protects the safety, health, and welfare of the community with regard to that code?
Mike?
I'm not sure we have sufficient time to answer that question. You're basically asking for a dissertation on land use.
No,
Generally speaking,
okay, go on. Sorry.
generally speaking, the master plan, the land, in particular, all sections, all elements, but particularly the land use section, should be drafted with the thought in mind of reaching those goals. The master plan must be revisited every 10 years by law. And each time it's revisited, it should be revisited with the concept of ensuring that the land use element at least meets those goals.
How about the other elements? I understand the land use, if something falls, you know, a shoebox and you have a pair of shoes and you use the land for that, that's fine. But what about the safety portion when it leaves the land and
Well,
how
the only thing I can suggest to you is that you go online and read the master plan. I think that would benefit you tremendously in helping to answer your questions. Because I think the master plan will lay out how it proposes to achieve those goals in each of the elements. And I don't really plan on going through every element of the master plan with you.
And the master plan is up for review right now. I think in 2013, no, 2021.
2011. 2021.
Okay.
So when it comes
So
to
that is where that you can make your suggestions how you want to change the master plan.
well, I would have to look at the master plan to see if I have any suggestions, or if it would answer the questions that I
It's
asked.
online. It's online.
I understand. I can look at it, that's fine. But I was just asking a question regarding, you know, the general welfare of the public, the safety of the public, the well-being. I was asking a question in general to a board member, not necessarily what the master plan, you know, states verbatim, but if a board member could answer, you know, when you think of public safety, what guides you? What leads you to a decision that this is not for the public safety or the well-being?
I think you're asking questions that require effusive answers that are inappropriate for this question and answer session, sir.
Okay, is there a possibility that we could set up a time and discuss a safety thing, or?
I think that you need to read the master plan. Let's start there.
Okay. All right, well, I was just looking at the code and I had a question regarding the code, and I was hoping that somebody, you know, could answer in layman's terms, because even reading the code, for any person reading it, it could get complex and legalese, and I'm sure the master plan is worded likely, and maybe the public would like to hear, hey, when something happens like this is why we vote a certain way. So
It's a case-by-case basis, sir. You need to listen to each application. People vote on each application depending on the proofs and the law that supports those proofs. So there's really no common theme because there are no precedents.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your interest and your comments. Okay, was there one other person?
Yes, we have three more, including Mr. Backus again. We'll give him a try. He was
Okay,
first to raise his hand.
Right, let's try him again.
Okay, he's still muted. I'm asking him to unmute. Okay, next we have Nina Carlson.
Yes. Sorry, am I being heard?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. Hi. So yeah, my name's Nina. I'm a lifelong resident of Edison, and I want to address some of my own personal concerns about the master plan. I have read it. And before we get started, I am aware that it does get renewed every 10 years. Up until recently, the only version available was from 2003, which I understand, other than some light modifications done to comply with New Jersey state regulations. There hasn't been a significant overhaul of the content of this master plan for the last 17 years, right? And so I know that it's up for review come 2021, and I just want to highlight a few things for the planning board that I think are really salient and I would like to see considered. So It's interesting that I heard that approving developments is a case-by-case basis, because I do understand that there's no precedent, but the point of a master plan in general is to create a cohesive goal for aligning like future development decisions to like propagate some idea of where a town should go. And for Edison, like in the master plan, I'm seeing all these ideals about new urbanism, and I'm not really seeing decisions being made, development and planning decisions being made in accordance to like the tenets of new urbanism, which is to say, you know, decisions based on condensed communities, like public transportation, combined consolidated communities. I'm seeing a lot of suburban sprawl and industrial sprawl, and I just want to highlight that because I don't think the tenets of new urbanism are being followed whatsoever. And if that's something that Edison wants to focus on in the future, which I think it should really think deeply about its planning philosophy, because yes, there should be precedent for development, but there should also be a roadmap for the future of Edison, because I don't see how we can make informed, cohesive development decisions without some sort of game plan. And there's a lot of things that are changing in Edison that are coming for the future. And so like, I don't see why we can't have a roadmap. I don't see why we can't have a cohesive development plan that's going to continue to bring our communities closer together, like to continue to push new urbanism if this is what we want, right? Like, there's also mention of like participatory planning. I would really like to see that as well. Participatory planning, citizen engagement, really reaching out and seeing what the residents want for their own community layout. Like I said, it's been 17 years. These are just like my personal concerns. You're seeing a lot of like automobile dependence. You're seeing a lot of highway dependence. You're going to see a lot more industrialization by the looks of it. And that's not where I think we want to go. Due to COVID, like Edison is, you know, is a commuter town now, right? People are working remotely. How are we going to retain residents when less people start commuting? What's our plan, right? What is Edison going to look like in 10 years, 20 years, 50 years? I know it's up for review. I would really, really hope to see an overhaul rather than some minor modifications, you know, 1 or 2 pages that I see updated in 2011. Those are my 2 cents. I've addressed my concern, like I've addressed the council with my concerns as well. And yeah, just want to throw my 2 cents out there. So,
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Yes, Councilman Coyle.
Madam Chair, to the resident, I've heard her speak before, and it's obvious she's read into this pretty deep, which is great. But what I mean, and Mr. Rubin can correct me, is from what you're listening to, this is a case-by-case applicant who comes to the board. Lately, there hasn't been an applicant that's come to the board addressing housing in that demographic you're asking for. And the board is more reactive, from what I understand, than we can't be proactive and match a developer with a piece of property. A piece of property is available, an investor comes to that area and takes over the intended use of what that area is. I know the one you're speaking of, it went to warehouse. Had that gone to residential, this board could look at that urbanism idea and the things you discussed, which are great things. But I want to move to what we've approved on here, the redevelopment studies and the engagement. I'm quite certain if you look through the redevelopment studies, we have, I think 6, there are close to 6 or 7 on here. But one of them you may want to dive into, and you're welcome to speak to the mayor and form an engagement committee. But the train station on Plainfield Avenue is one that's going to be looked at. The second one is Oak Tree Road. The entire length of Oak Tree Road is going to be looked at. I mean, that is a cultural opportunity of a lot of great things in that area. Second is widening Wood Avenue, which leads to the Metro Park train station. Part of that second is looking at the old roller rink, which is within a distance of the Metro Park train station. So the ideas and things you're discussing would definitely fit those projects. And I think it'll be a good chance for you to have those discussions when that pencil comes to paper. Today, Mr. Bignell is going to look at those areas just to see what the area is in need of redevelopment, if it fits the criteria. But I would hope that we have some engagement on those properties. And last is Amboy Avenue. We've asked for a study on the rear lot lines of the commercial properties to create parking. In the future, there's an application coming our way to build about 36 units at the location of 979 Amboy Avenue, which is a former gas station. If that application still comes, there could be a good shot at the board for you to address your concerns for the things you described. But I guess what I'm trying to get to is we haven't seen any applicants come that fit that criteria. And this board, from what I understand, Mr. Rubin could correct me, we just react to the applicant that comes fitting the criteria to make their application pending that property. So I think a lot of people like what you have to say, and I hope you can look through this list. If you need to meet with me separately or meet with anybody on the, in the administration, I'm certain you'll get some guidance, because these redevelopment studies here specifically have been brought to the planning board through the council, and each council member is aware of this, if not have suggested these to be done. So I hope to hear from you in the future and you look at these redevelopment studies, because this definitely fits the discussions you're having completely. And I'm quite certain you won't see a warehouse on these locations. Thank you.
And I would just add that I appreciate your involvement, and the planning board, this is one of the things that we work on, the master plan and the redevelopment. So I would encourage you to, to get more involved with this and offer your insights. And I appreciate your comments. Thank you. Okay, do we have another person trying to speak?
Yes, Brett Baker is on.
Yep. Good evening, members of the board. Brett Baker, Edison, New Jersey, 140 Grandview Avenue. First, I would just like to speak in strong opposition to the 41 Glendale Avenue project, which you all will be hearing at the beginning of October.
I'm sorry, sir. This is not the appropriate time to do that. That's not on the agenda. There is no applicant here to hear your comments. You cannot speak to that application now. The applicant is not here to respond. Please save your comments to October 5th.
Why can't I comment to the board?
Because the application will be on the agenda for October 5th, and the applicant has the opportunity to respond. This is time for comments on matters that are not on the agenda, on this agenda or any forthcoming agenda. That's why it's on the October 5th agenda. No, the applicant would have as much opportunity to respond to your comments as you do to theirs. They cannot respond if they are not present.
I wasn't asking the applicant questions. I was asking the board to reflect on their participation in the overcrowding of Edison.
Sir,
I do not feel that.
please respect the rules. That's
Mr.
all
Rubin,
we ask of anybody here is respect the rules.
Again, I am, and as a first-time caller, I would like respect as a citizen for clarification of my question. If you don't find that a question, then we have a different conversation to have. I was asking a question to the board, and that's what I was asking to clarify. I wasn't meaning to disrespect the board. I was asking a genuine question.
No, you started off with a statement that in opposition to the Glendale Avenue application. That's how you began.
And again, Mr. Rubin, and then I clarified my question after you corrected me, which I appreciate. I clarified my question. You cut me off and told me to respect the board. So I'm asking, how do I go about doing that if I would like to speak to the board in opposition to 41 Glendale?
Okay, but
next meeting. The next meeting you can do that.
Right, they have to have an impartial, opportunity to present their application. And so at this point, we will not discuss Glendale.
Does that mean that I also need to wait until you guys rehear the overdevelopment of the auto plaza on Route 1 as well?
No, that meeting is...
No, it's a different date.
It's a special meeting on September 5th. The only thing on the agenda is Glendale.
October 5th.
October 5th.
October 5th, sorry.
Again, correct. And so I'm also asking, even though you all heard Route 1 Auto this morning or earlier this evening, am I allowed to speak on that or no?
The public hearing's closed on that.
Well,
no,
I didn't
open
it.
We didn't have.
No, he has to wait till October 19th.
I didn't say the public portion of the hearing was closed. I said the public hearing is closed on that matter for tonight.
Right. You're right. You're right.
It will be reopened on October 19th. And at that point in time, the public will have an opportunity to participate.
Beautiful. Let me try a third one. Again, no disrespect to the board. I would then encourage this board to consider exposing how they handle matters, because I apparently don't know how this is handled. Another caller asked a question. It was pretty like shot down and sent immediately to the planning, to the master plan. I think these are very valid questions that we wish to ask for as citizens. And honestly, I can appreciate being corrected. I can't appreciate the tone with which I was spoken to tonight. You all might be annoyed that you've been on a meeting for 2 hours. I'm annoyed that I listened to this board ignore a recommendation from a sitting council member that the applicant was waiting for advice from the fire marshal. It was proposed to table it, and this board continued to talk for almost 90 minutes about an application that clearly wasn't being taken care of safely. And so I really would encourage, I want to know how this board functions. And honestly, I'm pretty put off right now because I don't have an interest in calling anymore or even attending a meeting, because apparently if I'm uncertain of how to contain myself, I'm gonna get spoken to sternly. So just would really consider you all to reconsider how you operate public meetings, because this is not appropriate in my opinion. I yield my time.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Councilman.
I could, understand the caller not commenting, or Mr. Rubin not commenting on 41 Glendale and other things, and I'm not going to override Mr. Rubin's decision how we clarify our legal part here, but unless in the future we have an educated forum of how and what people can discuss, it's challenging for residents who have a one-time opportunity to speak their piece, have waited 2 hours to discuss. I mean, I don't know if Mr. Baker has family in that neighborhood, but it's challenging to be cut off when you have something to say. Could he come back for the October 5th meeting? I don't know. But it's challenging and it resonates for the resident. But for us, I mean, this is normal process. But somewhere we have to figure out how we educate the public, because
Can we mute the dog?
it's challenging.
I can't mute the dog.
Okay. I think most people can hear me, and I'll speak louder. It is challenging for residents to understand our planning board process. Although in the beginning I may have been cavalier to be quiet and sit in the corner because I'm new to the board, but those days are over. I'm here to, do my best to protect the residents. I want to speak my piece when proper. This board's been fair to me, but it's challenging. When you're a resident to come here, even as a planning board member, it was new to me when I could speak, when I can't speak, how to address an application. There's not a planning board education review for any of us as members, but some have a lot of experience, and I'm thankful to have them as my colleagues. But for the residents, it is tough. So somewhere we have to have some empathy on that. I don't think Mr. Rubin means to be curt. He's here to control the meeting. He's very good as a planning board attorney. I'm very happy to have him. But I hope we find an education boundary with the administration and the board in the future of how and when people should speak and when they can make comments during public comment. Because for a council meeting, when you have public comment, they can talk about anything. So they're just not used to coming to a planning board meeting and not being able to talk about anything they want. So I just keep that for another discussion, but I just wanted to understand the sentiment of our residents.
And I also just wanted to address, the reason I gave the introduction was to try to explain a little bit of the formalities and the structure that we have. But perhaps I need to add to that introduction, because we wait to the end of the meeting for general comments. For example, the master plan, which is the planning board's main difference between the planning board and the zoning board. But taken under advisement, and we'll do our best.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll work with the council and the mayor and see what we can do. I'm not leaving it all on your shoulder or the board, but I understand it's challenging for residents. That's all. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
We have two more.
Two more?
Katie Mastinek.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi. My name is Caitlin Masenik Duarte. I live on 8 Westminster Place. And I guess to the point of how and when to speak, I think it might be helpful if you post the rules of the planning board online, review it beforehand. And Sherry, just so you know, when the public was let into the meeting, I guess, we couldn't really hear what you were saying. It was like kind of in the middle of your whole explanation. So that might have been why we may not have known
Oh, okay.
that we could speak or not. So maybe just like put that before the public portion. And then just for my understanding, obviously I'm here about the October 5th meeting. I'm not going to comment about it, but when we do speak at that meeting, will there be a vote directly after that?
And usually there is.
Okay, so I guess my concern is, and maybe, you know, this is like me being new at first time homeowner, so I just feel like that may not be enough time to take in all of the concerns, but obviously you have the plans beforehand, so I understand that. I have read the master plan in depth this weekend while I was on vacation, so, but another question I have too is, are there any, I didn't see anything really around the fact of like, when there's a resident area next to an light industrial area, I just was wondering if there's maybe like additions that I didn't see on what's available online, or if there's any other information that I could look up along that route.
Ma'am, you might want to go to a site called eCode, E''CODE, and that's where the zoning or the land use ordinance is. And I think that would fill in some of your questions that you're asking about with respect to what kind of buffering might be necessary when there's residential zones which are adjacent to industrial zones.
Yes, and I don't want to cut you off. I did read that. And maybe I'll save those concerns for the actual meeting. May not be appropriate for right now. And then finally, when we do speak at the next meeting, oh, can you guys hear me okay? It says my internet connection is unstable. Okay.
Yes.
So when I do speak at the main meeting, can I cite zoning code in defense of like one of my concerns, or is that more appropriate for like the zoning board? I'm obviously going to cite the master plan, but there's some stuff in code that I think applies to the plan and for that area.
You can say whatever you think is appropriate.
But I don't want to get yelled at the next meeting.
No, you won't get yelled at.
Okay, I get very emotional. I'll just like not crying.
No.
Angry, so
you can cite whatever. You can cite whatever. There will be a point in time during the hearing where you will be sworn in as a witness.
Okay.
And you will be able to provide whatever relevant information you care to cite to, or personal experience or anything else you wish to say.
And if I have video or photos or something, would I share it at that point? Would you let me share?
If you're going to have videos or photos, then you need to contact Lillian well in advance of the hearing, and she needs to work with the IT department to figure out how we're going to be able to see that.
Okay.
So you need to get in touch with Lillian as soon as possible and let her work with IT on how to get that posted. There's ways of sharing your screen that all the engineers and other professionals know how to do, and I don't know how to do. It may very well be that we're going to be able to teach you how to do that so that you can do it at that time, but you're way over my pay grade.
Well, I'm pretty tech savvy, so I'm not worried about that. I probably just have to be invited to the meeting or something. And maybe one of the other residents that spoke have already been in contact with Elaine. I'm sure they have. But I think that might be it for now. So I look forward to talking with you all again. And it was an interesting meeting for sure.
And thank you. You know, you will become part of the record then once you're sworn in as to that specific application. I'll see about if there's any way they want to post my introductory statement, if it's helpful for people to see, because I didn't realize that it was cut off. And then unfortunately right now I have my dogs are misbehaving and my technology is wavering. I'm losing the charge on my phone, but I really do appreciate and want to encourage the public and not to be, you know, feel intimidated because we want your comments. Okay?
Yeah, no problem. Trust me, I'll keep commenting. I'll come to all the meetings now that I know how to get here. And this is super helpful being like online, especially for me who has a small child at home and I can't get out around 7. So I really appreciate this. And I hope after COVID, we can continue this, but I don't know how you all feel about that. So.
Okay, maybe we can do a hybrid.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you again for your comments. Is there anyone else?
We have two more, actually. Tony D.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Great. So I've watched a few of your meetings and just
You
have a
need
few.
to state your full name for the record,
Oh,
sir.
sorry. Tony DiPasquale, 2 Pine Street in Edison. So I've watched a few of the meetings, and I agree with Councilman Coyle that, you know, you guys are very restricted on what comments you can make at your meetings. And unlike the council or the Board of Education that we're used to, you know, it first makes it look like you guys don't want the citizens to speak about certain things. And, you know, it might help to maybe say before you open to public, well, you can speak about this, you can't speak about this, you can't, like, you should maybe give us a list or give a manual of how you guys run your meetings, because you're doing it different than any other meetings that we have in the town. And, you know, as a public, as me, like Brett said, I don't really know if I want to speak at your meetings, because if I'm going to say something, I might get yelled at or be accused of this or that. So as a public person in Edison, I have no idea what we can say at your meetings, because you guys have some type of restriction on what you can say, what you can't say. If you have a issue, I can't even ask you a question about something that's possibly going to happen in the future, because it's not going to be, because I have to wait till it's talked about on that date. I can't ask you guys your opinion on something until somebody from that person who's submitting that whatever plan to that, I can't ask you a question unless they are there. Are those the rules? Because again, we have no idea. We don't know anything about this, because you guys have so many restrictions again on the rules of your planning meetings. So how do we know as the public? Maybe you should post something on the website, how you handle things, what you can say, what you can't say. Because it's very frustrating as a citizen when you don't know what you can say or what you can't say. Like I said, if I go to a council meeting or board of ed meeting, I can say anything I want. How am I supposed to know what I can say at your meetings?
Because we are a quasi-judicial body. We hold.
Okay, the council isn't either?
No, we hold public hearings. We have votes. We hold quasi-judicial proceedings. Everything has to be done under oath.
So even a question to you guys is under oath?
If during a public hearing,
yeah,
any question of an applicant can be done that is not under oath. But during the comment period, any comment has to be under oath and subject to cross-examination.
So we can't ask the board.
When you go to a Board of Ed meeting or you go to a council meeting, those are not quasi-judicial proceedings.
Okay, so again,
legislative bodies. They are legislative bodies. We are a quasi-judicial body.
Okay,
we
so
are almost like a courtroom.
You can't give your opinion on anything, is what you're saying.
That is correct. We have to be objective listeners of the testimony before any decisions are made, just like a judge in a courtroom.
Okay, so I didn't hear the beginning of the meeting, but do you guys state all this in the beginning of the meeting? Because if you do, great, I'll listen to it next time. But if not, again, as a citizen, I don't know all these details. All I know is I'm being restricted from saying something. So if there's legalese to this whole thing, great. But it should be put somewhere. Again, if it is put somewhere, then, you know, can I know where it is, or the public should know where it is? It should be posted somewhere on the website. It should be recited to everybody in the start of the meeting, all these details. Okay, I think as citizens, we deserve that information when we join your meetings. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
And I will do whatever I can to clarify it. It really is in the interest of the applicant and the public to speak. You both have to have, the applicant has to have an opportunity to an impartial hearing. So that's why your comments are restricted to the time where the applicant is present. I tried to explain in the beginning, but yeah, apparently I guess it got garbled, or the technology is still, I think, imperfect. So I will do the best I can to try to clarify, and that we do want the public's comments and we do want your participation. So I would encourage that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Madam Chair, again, he didn't have heard before, but these are things we're going to address in the future. I believe through the mayor and your leadership as chair and what comments we can get from our attorney. We'll try to have some statement that works or an education opportunity. That comes from the council and the mayor, but we'll do our best to follow what Mike could recommend or the chair. But I join your effort to try to help the residents. And I know you're here to empower the residents to speak, and Mike makes a valid point. This is a quasi judicial body, if I said that right, and everybody's under oath. So we expect their statements are true as to the applicant. But it's also in a good way we're not listening to them, because it doesn't give the applicant a head start on the argument. The argument's made for the application held at that time, which could be postponed or held over or voted against at that time. So they may appreciate waiting for other reasons, but I get their position, and I'm thankful that you're willing to listen, and the board, and thank you, Mr. Rubin.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
No, we just have Mr. Harold Backus again. Maybe give him another try, third try. Mr. Backus, please unmute.
Does he have to star 9 or something, and star 6? What does he have to do?
Probably, well, he's not dialed in. He's through Zoom, so it's just click the mute button. Unmute, actually.
Right, even the space bar, right? If he's using
Spacebar does it. I'm sending him a request to unmute, asking him. But...
He won't unmute?
No.
It's tricky sometimes. That's why with the dogs barking.
We've tried 3 times.
Yes.
It's up to Mike. It's up to his call.
I think you've given him ample opportunity. I'm sorry that he's unable to. Perhaps he can contact you tomorrow and you can help him walk through, and the next time he can speak at the next meeting.
Right.
Okay. Anyone else? So on the agenda, our next item is to adjourn the meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes. I second it.
Okay, and I
All
think
in
we can do it
favor?
all in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I just want to tell everyone to stay safe and be well. And we will see everyone.
I agree.
Right? October 5th, right?
That's
Good
right.
night, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Meeting adjourned.
Good night.
Good night.
everyone.
Good night.
Hi, Grandpa Hank.